Chapter 1186. Looking at the direction in which the two left, Lu Ping stroked his chin. His eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. After a while, Lu Ping stretched out his hand and waved it towards the Qingming River. He gradually turned into a stream of water, then turned into a cloud in midair and merged with the clouds in midair. The white cloud floated away leisurely in the direction in which Yang Huajun and Ying Ao left. The endless mountain peacock race was a huge race. They could all be considered the direct bloodline of Peng Daoren. However, in the peacock race, there was also the peacock royalty, and the most obvious sign of the peacock royalty was the ability to condense a life plume feather. The importance of this life plume feather to the peacock royalty was no less than a life treasure. It was the medium through which many direct divine abilities of the peacock royalty could be used, and it was also the symbol of the peacock royalty status. However, this life plume feather was of little value to the cultivators of the human and demon races. This was because this life plume feather seemed to have no other use other than as a decoration in their hands. Unless, it was used to make the 5 elements spiritual light fan. However, other than the peacock royalty, who else had the inheritance of such a supreme divine ability? Other than the peacock royalty, who else had the refining method of the 5 elements spiritual light fan? Originally, the peacock royalty could have said confidently, no. However, the two incidents where Yang Shujun's life plume feather of the 5 elements turtle and Yang Jichang's life plume feather after being killed outside the Qingming River made it difficult for the peacock royalty to figure out. Could it be that the refining method of the 5 elements spiritual light fan was really passed down in the cultivation world? But even so, without the direct bloodline of the peacock royalty and the secret technique of the peacock royalty to activate the 5 elements spiritual light fan, even if they obtained it, how much power could they exert? Although the practitioners of the peacock royalty were puzzled, they had lost 2 of their life plume feathers and a mid-dharma adept of the royal family. No matter what, the peacock royalty could not tolerate this. However, at this time, the peacock royalty had a tense relationship with the major and minor sects of the central mainland training world, led by the Lingyun Valley, because of the incident in Magic Cloud City. They could not spare more people to investigate the matter. Helpless, the peacock royalty had no choice but to inform some of the peacock royalty members who were traveling about. Firstly, it was to raise their vigilance, and secondly, it was in the hope that they could conduct some investigations. And Yang Huajun was undoubtedly a member of the peacock royalty who was traveling, and he was accompanied by the young talent of the Lone Eagle, Ying Ao. After his famous uncle, Yang Jichang, was killed and his life plume feather was taken, he and Ying Ao immediately began to investigate the matter. A golden red escape light flashed in the sky and landed on a hill not far away. The escape light disappeared, and Yang Huajun, who had a frosty expression, and Ying Ao, who was silent, walked out one after another. "Brother Ao, why are you like this today?" Yang Huajun asked coldly. She understood what the elders of the royal family meant this time. After Ying Li died in the 5 elements tortoise, the marriage between the Lone Eagle and the peacock royalty was suddenly interrupted. However, there did not seem to be any estrangement between the two clans because of this. Although the 5 peacock princesses were safe and sound, in order to rescue the 5 princesses from the 5 elements tortoise, the peacock royalty had lost 2 late Dharma adepts. This was a serious loss. The two clans worked hard to unite. After the marriage between Ying Li and Yang Rujuan failed, the two clans pushed out Yang Huajun and Ying Ao. Both of them were the best of the younger generation of the two clans. Yang Huajun was the eldest princess of the peacock royalty, and Ying Ao was the top expert of the younger generation of the Lone Eagle. In the eyes of the two clans, these two were a perfect match, and the significance of this was even greater than the marriage between Yang Rujuan and Ying Li. After the death of Ying Li, not only did the peacock royalty and the Lone Eagle no longer have any animosity, but they also cooperated more closely. This time, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao went out to travel together. In fact, it was an act of matchmaking by the elders of the two clans. Not only did Yang Huajun know about this, but Ying Ao also knew about it. During the period of time they had spent together, the relationship between the two of them could be considered pleasant. However, both of them understood that there was a barrier between them. Both of them were prideful and cold people of few words. Even though Ying Ao took the initiative, it was obvious that Ying Ao wasn't used to it. It was just that the two of them had no choice but to brace themselves and adapt to each other due to their respective tribes and races. However, this time, after seeing Lu Ping, Ying Ao no longer had his usual calmness. On the contrary, his performance could even be said to be clumsy, which made Yang Huajun very dissatisfied. He even did not hesitate to question Ying Ao. Unexpectedly, Ying Ao's mind was subtle. Seeing that Yang Huajun stood on the side of Lu Ping, he was even more annoyed in his heart. However, after all, he was a sensitive person. Previously, he had lost his sense of propriety in front of Lu Ping and immediately became vigilant. Although Yang Huajun's questioning tone made him angry, he would not show this on his face. So, with a slightly ashamed expression, he said, "I shouldn't have done it. It's just that this person launched a sneak attack for no reason outside Magic Cloud City. You know that this person is very strong, but I suffered a big loss. When I saw him just now, I inevitably had the thought of revenge. I couldn't calm down for a while, so I seem to have lost my composure." "Oh." Yang Huajun frowned slightly and said, "Brother Ao once fought with Brother Lu outside Magic Cloud City." When Ying Ao heard Yang Huajun call Lu Ping brother, he felt even more uncomfortable in his heart, but he still said, "Yes, at that time, this Lu Daoyu seemed to be coming out of Magic Cloud City." Speaking of this, Ying Ao suddenly seemed to realize something. He exclaimed in surprise and said, "Could it be that this person discovered something and tried to stop me?" Yang Huajun thought for a moment and shook his head. It shouldn't be. When he came out of Magic Cloud City, he should have just returned from the South Sea. He shouldn't have anything to do with Magic Cloud City. As for attacking Brother Ao, it's a bit strange. Could it be because of Ying Li? Ying Ao was shocked when he heard this. He asked in a deep voice, "Why? Could it be that Brother Li's death is also related to this person?" Yang Huajun was slightly startled. He hurriedly shook his head and said, "That's not it. But the two of them did have some conflict before, and Brother Li was defeated by Brother Lu." Ying Ao's eyes were indeed glowing fiercely. He said, "In that case, Brother Li's death might be related to this person." Yang Huajun still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Ying Ao. He said, "I know what you mean, but when Brother Li died, he wasn't there. It doesn't mean that Brother Li's death has nothing to do with him. No matter what, I will investigate this matter. If it's really related to this person, MPH." Although Ying Ao didn't say what he would do, it wasn't difficult for Yang Huajun to guess. It was just that she didn't expect things to develop to this point with Ying Ao. Originally, she also wanted to tell Ying Ao one thing. That was, in the woods outside Magic Cloud City, Lu Ping and his followers had slaughtered a group of Mara's team driven away by the peacock race. At that time, Yang Zhongchang, who was responsible for driving away Mara, had reported this matter to the clan. Yang Huajun also knew about this matter in detail. Yang Huajun originally thought that at that time, Lu Ping had actually discovered Yang Zhongchang and the others and realized the peacock race's plot against Magic Cloud City, so he took action to deal with Ying Ao. After all, humans and demons were different. Although Lu Ping had nothing to do with Magic Cloud City, he didn't want the forces of the demon race to break through the blockade of the Endless Mountains and reach into the cultivation world of the central land occupied by the human race. However, seeing Ying Ao's current appearance, Yang Huajun unconsciously swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. However, what Yang Huajun didn't know was that although this was Ying Ao's speculation, he had actually guessed the whole story. Ying Li was really killed by Lu Ping. Yang Huajun looked up at the sky and felt that there was something wrong around this hill, so he said, "Brother Ao, no matter what, this Lu Tianping has saved our lives. I still hope that Brother Ao doesn't have enough evidence to make an enemy of this person. Moreover, this person's magical power is tyrannical, and it's not easy to deal with him." When Ying Ao heard the first half of Yang Huajun's words, he was slightly dissatisfied. However, when he said the second half, he felt that Yang Huajun was concerned about him. He couldn't help but feel happy and said, "Sister Hua, don't worry. If I, Lone Eagle, want to kill someone, he won't be able to stop me just because his cultivation is high, right?" Hearing this, young Huajun's face darkened. He said, "That's right. However, Brother Ao, if I remember correctly, the illustrious reputation of the aristocracy is mostly obtained from the bloodline of my Peng Daoren, right?" Ying Ao secretly scolded himself for being muddle-headed all his life. Now that the Lone Eagle and the Peacock royalty had formed an alliance, they naturally let go of their past enmity. They didn't even have time to mention the past, yet he still brought it out to show off. He had to explain and beg for mercy again. However, he saw that young Huajun's expression suddenly changed. Ying Ao originally thought that she was still angry about his slip of the tongue just now. Just when he was about to say something, he heard young Huajun say first, "Brother Ao, don't you feel that the vicinity of this hill is a little too quiet?" Hearing this, Ying Ao was startled. The surroundings of this hill were completely covered by the forest, and in the distance were the flat farmlands on the banks of Qingming River. At this time, the forest should be bustling with the crisp chirping of birds, but now it was completely silent, not even a trace of wind. Ying Ao was originally an expert in sneak attacks and ambushes. It was just that his state of mind was disturbed because of the matter with Lu Ping previously. Now that young Huajun had already reminded him, his heart suddenly quivered. Wasn't this scene in front of him a sign of being ambushed? Ying Ao opened his palm, and a pair of small wing-like magic treasures with red edges and black feathers floated above his palm. Obviously, Ying Ao had already sensed the killing intent hidden in the surrounding forest. However, with a glance, young Huajun saw a red scar on Ying Ao's palm that had just stopped bleeding. It was left by Lu Ping when he sneak attacked Lu Ping from behind. He couldn't help but ask, "How's the injury?" Ying Ao smiled slightly and said, "It's fine." In fact, after being hit by Lu Ping's finger, Ying Ao had been trying his best to suppress the rampaging sword qi in his palm. It was only just now that he was able to expel the sword qi in his palm completely. While he was secretly amazed at the tyrannical strength of Lu Ping's cultivation, he couldn't help but secretly exclaim that it was a close call. If he was a little later, this hand would inevitably be affected in the battle, and he wouldn't be able to use 70 to 80% of his strength. That would be dangerous. Chapter 1187. Bang! 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 Several tens of devil luos suddenly flashed out from the forest using various escape techniques, charging toward young Huajun and Ying Ao who were on the top of the hill from all directions. How could there be Mara here? A gust of wind blew, and more than 10 wind asuras appeared from the gust. They blocked the two's escape route in one fell swoop, and at the same time, they charged toward them. The clouds in the sky were stirred up by these wind asuras. Young Huajun and Ying Ao had no time to think, and hurriedly blocked Mara's attack. Ying Ao's natal item was a pair of First Tribulation Spirit Treasure winged blades, which looked like they were refined from the feathers of his body. The winged blades spun in his hand, and instantly grew to a length of 5 feet. 2 blade lights flew out, and 2 wind asuras that swooped down from the sky were instantly cut in half. Young Huajun, on the other hand, was only wielding a spirit-nurturing Dharma treasure. It was a silver longbow. She inserted a golden feather into the bowstring of the longbow, and a long sword suddenly appeared in her hand. She pulled the longbow fully and loosened it, and the arrow suddenly disappeared. Among the demonic luos in the distance, the 2 that were running at the front suddenly knelt on the ground, and a finger-sized hole had appeared in their chests. The 2 of them attacked viciously. In just a single move, they had each killed 4 demon luos. Immediately, the demon luos that were pouncing toward them stopped in their tracks. They only surrounded the 2 of them on the hill in the center from afar. "This group of Mara is strange," young Huajun said in a deep voice. Ying Ao's expression was also very ugly. He glanced around and said, "There are about 100 of them, and most of them are big Mara. If we force our way out, we can still break through, but there must be a blood Mara hiding behind this group of Mara. I'm afraid that he will suddenly attack us when we break through. That would be terrible." Although this group of Mara did not have a blood Mara, most of them were big Mara that was equivalent to the middle or late Dharma stage. If they swarmed the 2 of them together, even if they were both in the middle Dharma stage, they had to be careful. The key was that there might be a hidden blood Mara. If he suddenly attacked, the two of them would be caught off guard and would suffer a great loss. Another breeze blew over the hill. Yang Huajun and Ying Ao nervously watched the Mara army that was getting closer and closer to them. It was not that the two of them did not know how to break through, but that behind this group of Mara army, not only had the figure of a blood Mara appeared, but even the aura of a jade Mara was becoming more and more obvious. Even if the two of them were dark and cold people, their expressions were unusually ugly at this moment. Using so many Mara just to surround the two of them, it seemed like a trap no matter how they looked at it. It was not that Mara did not have the wisdom to set up traps, but the two of them did not expect that they would actually encounter such a special honor. It was just that the two of them did not notice that when the breeze blew over, a white cloud slowly floated over from the sky, and the clouds that were previously disturbed by the appearance of the wind Azura also gradually gathered above the top of the hill. When Lu Ping arrived, Mara had already launched an attack on Yang Huajun and Ying Ao. More than 100 Mara attacked the two of them like cannon fodder. A few blood Mara wandered outside the battle, cutting off the two of them's escape route. At the same time, the blood demon also used all kinds of strange soul-devouring magic to disturb the two of them. Near the battle, Lu Ping even sensed the aura of 2 jade Mara. What a huge formation! It looked like a trap specially set up, but it was unknown whether it was specially set up for the two of them, or whether it was set up for the prey to fall into the net. However, this area seemed very desolate, not a good place to set up a trap. It seemed that even though the high-level Mara had some wisdom, it was still limited. How many people would pass by if they set up a trap here? It could not be that Mara had specially set up a trap to wait for them here, right? Yang Huajun and Ying Ao were really lucky. Just as the two of them killed 3 great asuras that pounced on them, a blood demon that had been wandering outside suddenly shouted at the two of them on the top of the hill. An imperceptible ripple instantly reached the two of them, and the bodies of Yang Huajun and Ying Ao inevitably paused, obviously affected by the blood demon's attack. The 2 blood asuras immediately took the opportunity to charge into the battle. Lu Ping saw it clearly from the sky, and thought to himself that the 2 blood asuras were most likely going to suffer a great loss. Sure enough, 2 screams were heard, and the 2 blood asuras were quickly pushed out from the battle. However, one of them had its arm and half of its shoulder chopped off, while the other's neck was torn in half by a bowstring that was suddenly thrown out, and it was almost decapitated. However, just as Yang Huajun and Ying Ao were planning to seriously injure the 2 blood asuras, a huge tree not far away from them suddenly exploded. Countless branches, leaves, and roots were obviously enhanced by a secret technique, and for a moment, they shot towards the two of them with a power that was not weaker than magic treasures. Things happened in a hurry, and the two of them hurriedly used their own means to block the attack, and at the same time, flew back. However, just as the two of them flew up, they suddenly found themselves suddenly being oppressed and pulled by a huge force, and they were fiercely smashed to the ground. The two of them barely managed to control their bodies, but the force of using all their strength to retreat was still there, and they still involuntarily took 2 steps back. Following that, the two of them let out a cry of pain. When they looked down, they did not know when a few stone spikes had emerged from the ground, piercing through their 4 feet and nailing them to the ground. Earth Azura. Lu Ping was stunned. This was a branch of the Azura clan that he had never seen overseas. The Azura clan was roughly divided into 7 main branches: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and ice. The only Azura branch that Lu Ping had not seen overseas was the Earth Azura branch, and the Earth Azura he saw today was a Jade Azura. Moreover, this Earth Azura was obviously extraordinary. The magic power that controlled the surrounding fields and the strange stone spikes had seriously injured both Yang Huajun and Ying Ao. Of course, this was also because the wood Azura hiding in the huge tree had suddenly attacked, which caused the two of them to be unable to divert their attention to deal with it. Both of their feet had been pierced. Although the two of them had sealed their wounds, whether it was flying or dodging, it still affected the two of them greatly. The Demon Luo's team took advantage of the situation to attack the two of them. Even the 2 Jade Shura didn't hide anymore, as they thought the two of them couldn't escape. They started to attack the two of them with the help of the remaining 3 Blood Demon Luos. The Demon Luos who were supposed to be fighting the small Demon Luos were now the ones who were waving flags and cheering. At this moment, Ying Ao appeared to be a little more unyielding. He tried his best to execute the supreme divine ability of the Lone Eagle clan, combining the two winged sabers with a spatial divine ability to move about randomly around the two of them. It was as though a world of saber light had been formed. In this world, other than Ying Ao and Yang Huajun, there was no place for the other evil Luos. 4 or 5 big Mara were swept into the blade light formation and smashed to pieces. One of the blood asuras was a step too slow, and at the same time, his companion's spiritual treasure was smashed, and the other blood asura had 2 fingers cut off. Even though the 2 jade asuras had retreated from the blade light formation, they looked very embarrassed. In mid-air, Lu Ping, who had turned into a cloud, looked unusually solemn. This blade light formation was very powerful, and the Ying Li that he had met in the 5 elements hidden tortoise formation could not be compared to this Ying Ao. Just at the moment when the blade light formation was set up, Ying Ao hurriedly said, "I will stop them. Sister Hua, quickly open the space passage." Lu Ping looked over and saw that while Ying Ao was using the blade light formation to block the attacks of the 2 jade asuras, Yang Huajun took out a purple gold talisman that was half a foot long from his storage space. The space teleportation talisman was a talisman that was more advanced than the escape talismans that Lu Ping had seen before. It was obviously made by a master who made talismans, and it could still open a stable space passage even if the nearby space was disturbed to a certain extent. After the space teleportation talisman was activated, the purple gold talisman began to burn. As the talisman dissipated, the space behind them also shattered, and finally formed a pitch-black space door. The two of them were overjoyed. Ignoring the injuries on their feet, they rushed into the space door one after another. The space door seemed a little unstable, and after a few shakes, it began to quickly close up. But would they be able to escape now? Lu Ping, who had turned into a cloud, had already floated behind the small hill. There was still a jade demon hidden here. Just as the last, almost undetectable crack in the space door was about to close up, the jade demon suddenly attacked. The companion's spiritual treasure in its hand was like a jade chime, and after a crisp sound, the space crack that was about to close up suddenly collapsed. Tens of feet away, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao fell from mid-air with disheveled hair and ragged clothes. Then, both of their faces turned pale at the same time, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. The use of space magic was the most dangerous when someone interfered with it. Not to mention the fact that the two of them were only mid-Dharma adepts, even great adepts and pure young Laozu would be in grave danger if someone interfered with them during the space teleportation. The two of them should be thankful that they survived with only some internal injuries. However, at this moment, the two of them were not in the mood to be thankful. If they were interfered with when opening the space door, they would die. Now that they were heavily injured and surrounded by a jade demon, they would die as well. At this moment, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao seemed to be in despair. It was just that the trap that Mara had laid today was really well planned, and the jade demon seemed to have predicted that they would have a way to escape. As for Lu Ping, who was in the clouds, he was still hesitating about whether he should help them. However, at this moment, Lu Ping suddenly froze, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He looked into the distance, far behind the hill, and there were 3 flowing lights that Lu Ping felt were exceptionally familiar flying in their direction. This was too much of a coincidence. Chapter 1188. I didn't expect it to be the 3 of them. Lu Ping watched as the 3 streaks of light flew towards the hill. When they were about 5 kilometers away, they had clearly sensed the situation at the top of the hill. The 3 streaks of light stopped there for a moment, then flew towards the hill again. More than 5 kilometers away, Qing Hu was the first to notice the situation at the top of the hill. Qing Lang and Qing Hu both stopped as well. "Big sister, it seems like someone is being surrounded by Mara." Qing Hu slowly retracted the divine sense that he had stretched out with great effort. Clearly, being able to perceive the situation over 5 kilometers away was a little too much for him. However, a hint of doubt flashed across his face. Clearly, it was rather strange for a group of devil luos to besiege a group of cultivators in this wilderness. Qing Lang's cultivation was slightly lower than Qing Hu's, but Qing Lang was clearly more intelligent than Qing Hu. He said in a low voice, "Big sister, we can't stay here for long. Moreover, the three of us are not out of danger yet. The people from the 9 mystical tower could catch up to us at any time, Qing Hu also said, then let's ignore them. We should hurry and find that Lu Tianping. I heard that he's traveling along the Azure Netherworld River, but he's walking like a snail. If we knew that he's still dawdling downstream, we wouldn't have to take the risk of waiting for him in the 9 mystical towers territory, only to be discovered by that crazy woman, Zhu Jiuwan. Qing Lang glared at him, then said to Qing Hu, Big sister, that Lu Tianping is really powerful now. Even a great cultivator was defeated in battle. We have to find him as soon as possible. Only then will we not have to fear the pursuers behind us, and only then will we have a chance to rescue Little 4, Little 7, and Little 8. Qing Hu pondered for a moment, then said, the two trapped are 2 yarrow cultivators, one is a peacock, the other is a lone eagle. Qing Lang was startled. Lone eagle? After saying that, he fell silent. Qing Hu said loudly, then what are we waiting for? Little 5 has the bloodline of the Lone Eagle clan, and he even received guidance from a senior of the Lone Eagle clan. He swore a long time ago that he would repay this favor to the Lone Eagle clan. Now that a cultivator of the Lone Eagle clan is in trouble, and Little 5 is no longer here, we should rescue him. This can be considered as returning this favor on behalf of Little 5. Qing Hu nodded and said, second brother is right. Moreover, the All-Devil clan is a great enemy of the cultivation world. Since we've encountered them, we should naturally do our best. It can be considered as killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Qing Lang hurriedly said, we'll just save those 2. Looks like the Mara clan that's besieging them isn't weak, so don't drag us here with you. After all, that crazy bitch from the 9 Profound Pavilion is still chasing after us, and we'll be in trouble if she catches up to us. Qing Hu noticed that Qing Lang was staring at him as he spoke, and he immediately became angry. Why do you keep staring at me? I won't cause any trouble. Qing Lang snorted coldly, I hope so. Qing Hu immediately said angrily, what do you mean by that? Qing Lang said in a low voice, if you hadn't killed so many people that the 9 Profound Pavilion seized the opportunity to surround you, how could 7th sister and the others have been captured by that crazy bitch, Zhu Jiuwan? How could 4th brother and the others have died? Qing Hu's furious expression suddenly froze, and he was just about to say something when he heard Qing Hu suddenly shout, enough. All of you, shut up. Qing Hu and Qing Lang both snorted coldly and did not say another word. Qing Hu then said, open up a path from the outside and save those 2, then we'll leave. 3 streaks of light once again rose into the air and flew towards the hill. Very quickly, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao noticed Qing Hu and the other 2. At this time, there were people flying over to help the 2 of them. Yang Huajun said loudly, thank you for your help, fellow Taoists. Please leave your names, and Yang Huajun will repay you generously in the future. Qing Hu and the other 2 were now Dharma adepts, especially Qing Hu herself, who had already passed the second lightning tribulation. Her abilities were only slightly weaker than those of the top heirs from the Holy Lands. Qing Hu and Qing Lang could also be considered experts in the early Dharma stage. The 3 of them attacked, and the first thing they did was to keep the Jade Demon occupied. Cyan Fox swung her giant axe at the Jade Demon's head with a force that could split mountains. She caught the Jade Demon off guard, and for a time, the Jade Demon was forced to retreat. However, Qing Hu knew her own abilities. Among the adepts of the same level, although Qing Hu was considered an expert, she was not strong enough to fight a Jade Mara head-on. She was only relying on the indomitable aura of her axe technique and the fact that she had caught the Jade Demon off guard. Once the Jade Demon survived this wave of attacks from Qing Hu, it would be Qing Hu's turn to suffer. Just as Qing Hu was temporarily holding off a Jade Demon, Qing Hu and Qing Lang also made their moves. They broke through the Mara's encirclement and launched a sneak attack on 2 injured Bloodshorer, severely injuring them once again. After that, the 2 of them did not wait for the 2 dying Bloodshoras to finish them off. They suddenly turned around and joined forces to attack a Bloodshorer that had been cooperating with the Jade Demon to attack Yang Huajun and Ying Ao. Just as Qing Hu and the other 2 suddenly joined the battle, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao suddenly erupted with power. Although the 2 of them were already heavily injured, It did not mean that they did not have any trump cards up their sleeves that they could use to fight to the death. This was the last chance for the two of them to escape with their lives. Naturally, both of them would use their trump cards to fight for their lives. Yang Huajun flipped the longbow in her hand, and the broken bowstring was reattached. She pulled the longbow to its fullest, but there was no arrow on the bowstring. The life feather on the bowstring was glowing with a golden light. As the life feather dimmed, there was an arrow on the bowstring that was glowing with a golden light. It was pointed at the jade shura that was not far away from her. At the same time, the wings in Ying Ao's hands suddenly disintegrated, turning into 108 black and red feathers. Each feather was a sharp feather blade. It was 108 spiritual treasures, and they formed the sword light matrix again. But this time, the power of the sword light matrix was several times greater than before. Facing the sword light matrix, the other jade shura that Ying Ao was fighting quickly retreated. The two jade shuras were forced to retreat, not daring to go forward to fight. The two of them quickly rushed toward Qing Hu and Qing Lang. After meeting up with the two of them, the four of them worked together to support Qing Hu, who was now being beaten by the jade demon. The two jade shuras that had been shaken off had recovered, and they were chasing after the four of them. They obviously did not want to let go of the fat meat in their hands. Right at that moment, a loud roar came from the forest outside of the book. Before the roar had even stopped, a flash of lightning had already landed on the ground. A figure then appeared from within the lightning. If it was not Yuan Jinglei from the Yuan family, who else could it be? Yuan Jinglei's arrival near the hill was not only unexpected by Yang Huajun, Qing Hu, and the others, but also by Lu Ping, who was hiding in mid-air. Looking at the direction of the long cry, it was only a few miles away from the forest. But even with Lu Ping's mind, he did not notice that someone was hiding there. The Yuan family was the top family in the world, and their inheritance could be traced back to the time when the sky was first opened. They had many amazing skills. Just as Lu Ping was marveling at the power of the Yuan family, Yuan Jinglei shouted, "Don't panic, everyone. Yuan Jinglei is coming." As soon as he said this, several bolts of lightning as thick as water buckets exploded in front of Qing Lang, Yang Huajun, and the others, frightening the Mara army that was closing in on them. One bolt of lightning fell on the jade demon, who was fighting back against Qing Hu, to relieve some of the pressure on the green fox. Yuan Jinglei's participation changed the situation on the battlefield. Yuan Jinglei was an expert no weaker than the direct descendants of the Holy Lands, and his strength was on par with Yang Huajun and Ying Ao. Not to mention that he specialized in lightning magic that could restrain Mara. The three great jade Mara were intimidated. The two blood asuras that had been heavily injured by Yang Huajun, Qing Lang, and the others were immediately reduced to ashes by the bolts of lightning. Yuan Jinglei roared with laughter and said, "Everyone, why don't we join forces and kill this group of evil Luos so that they don't cause trouble everywhere?" Unexpectedly, as soon as Yuan Jinglei finished speaking, Qing Hu was the first to speak. "Fellow Daoist of the Yuan family, the three of us only want to save these two to repay a favor to a senior of the Lone Eagle clan. Unfortunately, the three of us have other matters to attend to, so we can't stay here any longer. We're really sorry." Yang Huajun also spoke at this time. "I've written to fellow Daoist Yuan for your help, but Brother Ao and I are also seriously injured, and we're also exhausted from breaking out of the encirclement. I'm afraid we won't be of much help. We're really sorry." Yuan Jinglei was clearly a little embarrassed to hear all of this, so he hurriedly smiled and said, "Oh, it's my fault for not thinking things through. How about this, everyone retreat first, I'll cover your retreat." With that, the sound of wind and thunder rang out, and several bolts of lightning fell, intertwining in mid-air, even forming a lightning net between the group and the pursuing Mara. Then, Yuan Jinglei said, "Everyone, retreat quickly, I can't hold out here for long." Yang Huajun said, "Fellow Daoist Yuan is a righteous person. Peacock Yang Huajun and Lone Eagle Ying Ao will repay this favor in the future. Also, I don't know how to address the three other Daoists, but the Peacock royalty will definitely repay the kindness of saving us today." After getting rid of the jade demon, Qing Hu had already reunited with Qing Hu and Qing Lang. Hearing Yang Huajun's words, Qing Hu waved her hand and said, "There's no need for that. Today, we only helped to repay the Lone Eagle's kindness." If fate allows it, we can continue to be polite in the future." With that, Ching Hu, and Ching Hu soared into the sky. Ching Hu said loudly, "Thank you, fellow Daoist Yuan, for covering our retreat. We're out of danger now, fellow Daoist should retreat quickly." Yuan Jinglei laughed loudly and said, "That's how it should be." With that, the Thunder King suddenly exploded, and countless bolts of lightning wreaked havoc, turning the area within a radius of several dozen zhong into a lightning domain. Mara's pained howls could be heard coming from within, and Yuan Jinglei had already taken the opportunity to escape several li away from the hill. Several more flashes of light appeared in the sky, and it was obvious that more people were flying in their direction. Qing Lang's expression didn't change, but his voice was unusually anxious as he said in a low voice, "Big sister, the 9 profound towers people are chasing us. We need to leave quickly." Chapter 1189. Not only did Qing Hu and the other two see the flickering light in the sky, even Yuan Jinglei, Yang Huajun, and Ying Ao had noticed it. Yuan Jinglei was overjoyed. "It looks like a fellow Daoist from the 9 Profound Tower. If we can ask for the help of fellow Taoists from the 9 Profound Tower to annihilate this group, there's a high chance that Mara will succeed. What do you all think?" Yang Huajun and Ying Ao, who were about to leave, were immediately tempted. It would be a lie to say that the two of them weren't furious after being besieged by Mara's inexplicable trap. However, when Yuan Jinglei invited the two of them, they were already an arrow at the end of its flight and were unable to mount a counterattack. But now, if the 9 Profound Tower really joined in, it wouldn't be difficult for them to annihilate this group of Maras. Just as Yang Huajun and Ying Ao were feeling tempted, they suddenly heard Qing Hu and her siblings say, "Since that's the case, we'll be taking our leave first." With that, they didn't wait for Yuan Jinglei and the others to urge them to stay. Instead, they turned into streaks of light and left the area. Qing Hu and her siblings had ugly expressions on their faces. They didn't expect the 9 Profound Tower to catch up so quickly. Qing Hu blamed herself. She thought that they had already left the 9 Profound Tower far behind, but she didn't expect them to catch up so quickly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone to the Central Plains to save Yang Huajun and Ying Ao no matter what. These people definitely had some sort of method or treasure. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to discover and correct the direction of their pursuit so quickly. Yuan Jinglei and Yang Huajun looked at each other helplessly before flying towards the 9 Profound Towers cultivators from the north, hoping to get their help. As a result, the group of Mara on the hill seemed to have sensed that something was wrong and had already begun to retreat. If they didn't hurry, these Maras would probably disappear without a trace. As the three of them left, a mighty gust of wind blew in the sky once more. The white clouds that had just gathered in the sky were dispersed once more, then leisurely flew in the direction that Qing Hu and the others had left in. From the beginning to the end, Yuan Jinglei and the others didn't notice the abnormality in the sky. The 9 Profound Towers' light did not slow down in the slightest when Yuan Jinglei and the others went to meet them. On the contrary, it seemed to have sped up a little, as if it wanted to charge towards the three. Yuan Jinglei frowned and called out loudly, "Are you fellow Taoists from the 9 Profound Tower?" "I am Yuan Jinglei. There's a group of Maras on the hill in front of us. We want to exterminate them, but we don't have the strength to do so. Fellow Taoists, would you be willing to lend us a hand?" The light finally slowed down, and a woman's voice came from within. There was a trace of surprise in her voice. "You're from the Yuan clan?" Yuan Jinglei's lips curled into a smile. Just as he was about to speak, the woman's voice rang out again, "I don't have time to waste with you. Hurry up and get out of the way. Those 3 bastards escaped from you earlier, and I originally wanted to settle the score with you. It seems like you didn't know either, but don't stop me from capturing them now." Yuan Jinglei's face immediately darkened. Even Yang Huajun and Ying Ao behind him had ugly expressions on their faces. They were people of high status, and the moment they announced their clan's name, they were used to receiving flattery and flattery. Even those of similar status would have to give them some face. When had they ever suffered such merciless ridicule? However, from the looks of it, there were at least 7 or 8 people in the group. Among them, there were a few whose auras weren't any weaker than theirs. It was obvious that they were people of high status in the Nine Profound Tower. Furthermore, they were rushing towards them in such an overbearing manner, as if they intended to start a fight. Yuan Jinglei, Yang Huajun, and Ying Ao had no choice but to dodge. A few streaks of light whizzed past them, and the proud voice of the woman from before could be heard. At the same time, they could vaguely hear a conversation. Senior Sister Julwan, that Yuan Jinglei is one of the 3 young masters of the Yuan clan. The 2 beside him seem to have extraordinary statuses as well, and they seem to be from the peacock race and the lone eagle. How about we? Can't you have some guts? So what if they're the peacock or the lone eagle? We're disciples of the Nine Profound Tower. When have our statuses been lower than theirs? It's more important to chase after those 3 bastards. Just now, they shot those 3 bastards. I'm already giving face to the forces behind them by not settling the score with them. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving face to anyone who blocks our way. Yes, Senior Sister is right. For some reason, these people did not deliberately conceal their voices. Although the streaks of light were fast, Yuan Jinglei and Yang Huajun were not ordinary people. How could they not hear their conversation? A trace of anger flashed across Yuan Jinglei's face, but he quickly concealed it. On the other hand, Yang Huajun and Ying Ao's faces were ashen. Clearly, they were incomparably furious at the woman's arrogance. With a bitter smile on his face, Yuan Jinglei said, "I was reckless and caused the 2 of you to be humiliated. However, I just remembered that this woman seems to have a special identity. No wonder she's so arrogant." Yang Huajun said in a deep voice, "Fellow Daoist Yuan, who exactly is that woman?" With a trace of difficulty on his face, Yuan Jinglei still opened his mouth and said, "This woman is none other than the current 9 Palace Guard of the 9 Palace Tower, Zhu Julwan." Without the slightest expression on his face, Yang Huajun said word by word, "Zhu Julwan, hehe, what a good Zhu Julwan." With a bitter smile, Yuan Jinglei said, "Although this Zhu Julwan is only the 9 Palace Guard of the 9 Palace Tower, and she has just obtained this position, the person behind her is not simple. Although the eldest princess has a noble status, don't easily find trouble with her, okay?" Ying Ao snorted coldly and said, "Oh, so it's just a playboy from the sacred land of the Central Plains. I wonder who is behind this person. Brother Yuan, please tell me." Yuan Jinglei looked like he did not know what to do and could only say in a low voice, "This person's grandaunt is a 2nd-generation disciple of the 9 Palace Tower. Among the 2nd-generation practitioners of the entire human cultivation world, she is almost the 2nd person to step into the pure yang stage, 8th Sister Zhu Laozu. Although 8th Sister Zhu, the pure yang practitioner of the 9 Palace Tower, was a 2nd-generation disciple, her grandniece, Zhu Julwan, was a 3rd-generation disciple and was most doted on by 8th Sister Zhu Laozu." The hostility in Ying Ao's eyes instantly disappeared by half. In Ying Ao's view, even if there was a late Dharma adept behind this woman, even if there was more than one, he, Ying Ao, would not be afraid. However, the person behind this woman was actually a pure yang practitioner, Laozu. In that case, Ying Ao naturally would not do something like throwing an egg against a rock. Yang Huajun laughed coldly. The 2nd pure yang among the 2nd-generation practitioners? There were already 2 2nd-generation pure yang practitioners of the peacock royalty, and there were only 2 pure yang practitioners among the 2nd-generation practitioners of the human race. The eldest princess of the peacock royalty naturally had the right to laugh coldly. At this time, Yuan Jinglei also had no choice but to return to the human race and say, "There are still some differences between the 2nd-generation practitioners of the human race and the demon race. The demon race has always had a longer lifespan than the human race. If the cultivators of the same generation have the same progress, the time that the demon race cultivators spend cultivating is usually 1 to 200 years longer than the human race, and the time that the demon race cultivators spend cultivating is usually 30 to 50 years shorter than the human race. However, the number of pure yang Laozu in the human race and the demon race is almost the same. This is also the reason why the human race and the demon race are always in a stalemate, with no one able to do anything to the other." Having said that, in fact, the human clan had always been faster than the monster clan, so the 2 sides could still maintain a general balance. Nothing more than the human clan cultivators had a shorter cultivation time, and the Pure Young clan cultivators had a faster replacement, while the Monster clan cultivators had a relatively longer cultivation time, and the Pure Young ancestor had a longer lifespan. But overall, in fact, the human clan still outnumbered the Monster clan, which was why the most fertile areas of the cultivation world were occupied by the human clan cultivators. Qing Hu and the other two flew all the way to the sky above Qingming River, preparing to follow the river downstream to search for Lu Ping. However, the 9 profound towers' pursuers were right in front of them, and Qingming River was the widest and smoothest in the middle reaches, so the three of them were unable to scan the entire surface of the river with their divine sense. They could only try their best to fly downstream in an attempt to shake off the 9 profound towers' pursuers. However, the area around Qingming River was an endless stretch of flat land, without any cover. Even if the three of them could avoid the pursuers behind them, they couldn't shake them off. Qing Hu could no longer hold himself back. He said in a low voice, "We can't escape anymore. We might as well turn back and fight to our heart's content. If we continue to run like this, we won't be able to escape, and our Zhen Yuan will be mostly recovered." If they were to fight a battle of attrition with the cultivators from the sacred grounds, the cultivators from the sacred grounds could rely on all sorts of elixirs to recover Zhen Yuan. In the end, their Zhen Yuan would be completely exhausted. So what if they were to turn back and fight? Among the 9 profound towers' pursuers, there were 3 who had the qualifications to become the 9 heirs. Qing Hu and the other 2 were no match for them. "Qing Hu, where do you think you're going this time? Are there still people from the Purple Sun Palace and the Spirit Beast Taming Sect coming to rescue you?" Zhu Jiuwan's shrill voice came from afar, his tone filled with pride. "Damn it. Big sis, third bro, you guys leave first. I'll fight them first." Qing Hu roared and turned around to attack the 9 profound towers' pursuers. Qing Hu knew that they couldn't continue to run like this. Only by throwing caution to the wind and blocking the pursuers behind them would they have a chance at survival. However, just as he was about to turn around, Qing Hu grabbed his shoulder and said, "Don't be impatient, there might be a turn for the better." Qing Hu was stunned when he heard this, and even Qing Hu looked at Qing Hu with a hint of hope in his eyes. "Look at the fog around us." Fog. Qing Hu and Qing Lang looked around and discovered that there was indeed fog around them. However, the fog was so thin that it was almost non-existent. It seemed to be just a little thicker than the water vapor above the river. However, after the 3 of them flew for another few kilometers, Qing Lang was the first to feel joy in his heart. This was because the fog was indeed gradually becoming thicker. However, this change was too gradual, and neither he nor Qing Hu had noticed it before. Right at this moment, the 9 profound houses cultivators behind the 3 of them suddenly sped up, closing the distance between them by a few dozen feet. Qing Lang's expression changed. The 9 profound towers cultivators had also noticed that something was wrong. They were using secret techniques to increase their speed. Chapter 1190. The cultivators from the 9 profound tower suddenly sped up, quickly closing the distance between them and Qing Hu's group. They had clearly discovered that something was amiss with the mist that had suddenly appeared above the azure nether river. However, as the cultivators from the 9 profound tower suddenly sped up, a thick mist suddenly rose up from the surface of the river not far away from Cyan Fox's team of 3. The mist billowed towards Cyan Fox's team. Qing Hu's group's expressions changed slightly, but in the end, they didn't bother dodging the 9 profound tower cultivators behind them. Instead, they charged headfirst into the thick mist and disappeared without a trace. The cultivators from the 9 profound tower seemed to pause in midair for a moment, but before they could do anything, the surging mist suddenly pounced on them and swallowed them whole. Qing Hu's group of 3 immediately lost their sense of direction after entering the mist. They flew as fast as they could, but they couldn't get out of the mist. Their divine sense spread out in all directions, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. The 3 of them knew that they had run into an ambush set up by another powerful cultivator. The 3 of them were on their guard, but their surroundings were completely silent. After a while, a rustling sound suddenly came from within the mist. Green Wolf pointed downwards, and Green Fox understood that Green Wolf was referring to the azure netherworld river. The 3 of them suddenly stopped flying and started descending. As long as they could land in the azure nether river, they would naturally be able to escape the mist formation. "Why are you running?" A soft voice rang in the ears of the three, but it was no less than a clap of thunder. The three of them stood up in shock, only to discover that although the three of them had been falling all the way, it seemed that they had not fallen even an inch. But why did that voice sound so familiar? Qing Lang hurriedly looked at Qing Hu, only to see her expression suddenly calm down. There was even a hint of joy in her eyes. Was it really Lu Tianping? A cloud of mist condensed in front of the three of them, gradually forming the outline of a person. As the mist continued to fuse with the person's outline also gradually became clearer. Who else could it be but Lu Tianping? Haha, I came to greet you guys first. Those 9 profound tower cultivators aren't easy to deal with. This Lu Ping smiled faintly and explained to the crowd, I was so focused on dealing with the 9 profound pavilion cultivators that I forgot to inform you guys. Qing Hu exclaimed, divine sense projection? Isn't this a skill that only late Dharma adepts who have gone through the second thunder trial have? How did you manage to do it? Qing Hu's eyes darted around, and he suddenly said, no wonder you defeated the 4th elder of the Tenma people. You've already reached the late Dharma stage, I knew it. Qing Hu and Qing Hu looked at each other, and Qing Hu could not help but say, second brother, shut up. Qing Hu was infuriated. Just as he was about to curse at Qing Lang, he heard Qing Hu ask, how about you? Can you handle it? Those 7-9 profound pavilion cultivators are all heir disciples. 3 of them are the guardians of 7-star pavilion, 8 trigrams pavilion, and 9 palace pavilion. Their cultivation bases are probably not inferior to yours. Lu Ping smiled and said, I have the geographical advantage on the Qingming River. I can handle it for now. Qing Hu also knew that he had said the wrong thing. Lu Ping could not be a late Dharma adept, but hearing that he could handle 7-9 profound pavilion cultivators by himself and still have time to converse with the 3 of them through the divine sense projection technique, Qing Hu said sincerely, impressive. I'm impressed. It was important to know that the 3 of them had been chased by the 7-9 profound pavilion cultivators for nearly 10,000 miles to the south. Naturally, they knew how powerful these 7 people were. The more they knew, the more Qing Hu admired Lu Tianping's abilities. Lu Ping only smiled at Qing Hu's praise. Although the divine sense projection was a shadow, Lu Ping had used his divine sense to condense water vapor. In fact, it could be considered as having a body. This was quite similar to the art of deception, and it could also be clearly displayed in Lu Ping's application. Did you guys come all the way to the south just to find me? Qing Hu made a sound of surprise and said, how did you know we were going all the way south? Lu Ping smiled and said, I was there when you guys helped Yang Huajun and Ying Ao escape. I didn't want to see those 2, so I didn't tell you guys that I was hiding nearby. After that, I saw the 9 profound pavilion cultivators chasing after you guys, so I went back to the Qingming River first and made some arrangements, waiting for you guys to come over. After Lu Ping explained the whole story, the 3 of them were even more shocked. First Princess Yang Huajun and Lone Eagle Ying Ao, and then Yuan Jinglei, who came later, were all famous practitioners. Including Qing Hu himself, they were all mid-Dharma adepts like Lu Ping. However, they never knew that someone was hiding near them. Lu Ping asked again, previously, when we were in the South Sea, I heard from Su Jin of the Purple Sun Palace that the 9 of you had offended the 9 profound pavilion. After that, it was Brother Xie and Brother Sang who intervened to settle the matter. Why is the 9 profound pavilion looking for you guys again? Did something happen to Brother Xie and Brother Sang? Qing Hu nodded and said, the last time Brother Xie and Brother Yi tried to punish the 9 profound pavilion, they were summoned back to their respective sects and never appeared again. However, this time, the 9 profound pavilion is chasing us because we provoked them first. Oh, so that's how it is. Lu Ping nodded, then suddenly frowned and said, Ayo, wait a moment. I didn't expect this girl from the 9 profound pavilion to have such a treasure on her. As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, the divine will projection in front of him suddenly dissipated. The real body that was fighting the 9 profound pavilion had obviously run into some trouble, and Lu Ping had no choice but to withdraw his divine will. The dissipated body turned into a spray of water, then fell down like a drizzle. The three of them looked at each other, then quickly stood back to back, on high alert. Next, they saw the thick fog around them move in a certain direction. Soon after, the fog thinned. Clearly, the fog array that Lu Ping had just set up was about to be broken. Soon after, a cry of alarm came from within the fog, followed by a series of violent explosions. The violent shockwaves of spiritual energy caused the rapidly shrinking fog to dissipate, but the fog continued to move in a certain direction. At the same time, a cacophony of curses could be heard, mixed with Zhu Jiuwan's slightly shrill voice. Clearly, Lu Ping and the 9 profound pavilions cultivators had encountered each other. However, from the sounds of the battle, it seemed that the 9 profound pavilions cultivators were the ones at a disadvantage. Suddenly, a dark light shone from the thick fog. The light grew brighter and brighter, and the surrounding fog became thinner and thinner. Then, a figure appeared 100 feet away from Qing Hu and the others. The three of them tensed up, but they quickly realized that the figure's back was facing them, and it seemed to be Lu Ping himself. As the fog thinned, it flowed even faster, until finally, the fog retracted and disappeared into the spout of the glowing teapot. A jade-like hand beckoned to the air, and the black teapot slowly fell into it. This person was the 9 profound pavilions' direct disciple, Zhu Jiuwan. At this time, there were only 6 people in Zhu Jiuwan's group gathered together, and they were about 100 meters away from Azure Fox and the others. One of them seemed to have suffered serious injuries, and his face was pale. He was being supported by 2 of his fellow disciples, who were also sweating profusely and seemed to be treating his injuries. Lu Ping stood in front of the 3, facing Zhu Jiuwan and the others from a distance. Lu Tianping of the North Sea? Zhu Jiuwan stared at the person in front of her, and as for Azure Fox and the others behind Lu Ping, they were completely ignored. Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "That's me." Zhu Jiuwan's expression was extremely ugly, and she said coldly, "Do you want to make an enemy of my 9 profound pavilion?" Lu Ping smiled faintly, "I wouldn't dare to be your enemy, but you don't seem to be the leader of the 9 profound pavilion. Fellow Daoist Zhu is too full of yourself." The anger on Zhu Jiuwan's face deepened, but the more angry she was, the more fearful she was of Lu Ping. She continued, "What relationship do you have with Azure Fox and the others, for you to be willing to make an enemy of my 9 profound pavilion?" Lu Ping still had a calm expression on his face, and he said, "I've already said that although you're the 9 palace guardian of the 9 profound pavilion, you can't represent the entire 9 profound pavilion. As for Azure Fox and the others, you've suffered at the hands of Brother Xie of the Purple Sun Palace and Brother Sang of the Spirit-Taming Beast sect, yet I'm very close to those 2. Surely you're aware of the relationship between us, fellow Daoist Zhu?" Back then, Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had punished the 2 9 profound pavilion masters because of Azure Fox, and this matter had caused quite a stir in the Central Plains cultivation world. Many sects had even interfered, and Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had been summoned back by their respective sects to cultivate in seclusion. From Lu Ping's point of view, it was more like facing the wall and reflecting on their mistakes. Zhu Jiuwan naturally knew that Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had defeated the 2 tower masters of the 9 mystical tower. The reason why she had risen from the top 10 of the 9 mystical tower's direct disciples to the position of guardian tower master of the 9 palace tower was partly because of ancestor Zhu Biajie, but in fact, it was also because the previous 2 tower masters had been demoted by the 9 mystical tower. Zhu Jiuwan glanced at the injured junior brother beside her and said coldly, "Since Lu Daoyu insists on getting involved in this mess, I have nothing else to say. I ask Lu Daoyu to release my 8th senior brother and cure junior brother Shu of the cold poison. We'll leave immediately after that." Azure Fox and the others immediately shuddered. Lu Ping had actually captured the 9 profound pavilion master. Qing Hu didn't even think about it and immediately shouted, "You can't release him." The expressions of Zhu Jiuwan and the others immediately changed. Lu Ping also looked slightly surprised as he turned to look at the 3 of them. However, Azure Fox explained, "Brother Lu, the other party has captured 4th brother, 7th sister, and 8th brother. I hope Brother Lu can help them and exchange for them." Chapter 1191. Even though Lu Ping was highly skilled, he was still facing 7 direct disciples of the Nine Shen Tower at the same time, including 3 tower leaders. Naturally, he did not have the confidence to win, which was why he had used the cover of the fog to launch a sneak attack. Since they were not fighting head-on, the 8 trigrams master of the Nine Shen Tower was caught off guard and was captured alive by Lu Ping. Then, he was thrown into the House of Gold and imprisoned. At the same time, Samling made his move. At this time, Samling was facing a direct disciple of the Nine Shen Tower who was at the peak of the early Dharma stage. This was because Lu Ping had taken the initiative to launch a sneak attack and disrupted the formation of the 7 direct disciples of the Nine Shen Tower. He managed to pin down 6 of them, while the remaining one was surrounded by Samling. Although Samling was only at the peak of the core forging stage, Samling, who had condensed a 9th-grade golden elixir, was already very powerful. Previously, they had joined forces to fight against a Dharma adept. Although they were facing a direct disciple of the Nine Shen Tower, they were not afraid. Just as Lu Bai and Lu Hai joined forces to block the attack from the Nine Shen Tower's cultivator, Lu Linga suddenly jumped out from the side and bit the cultivator's arm. At this time, the Nine Shen Tower's cultivator, who had suffered a series of setbacks, finally managed to retract the fog that Lu Ping had set up with the help of Zhu Jiuwan's black teapot. However, Samling had already returned to Lu Ping's side, and Lu Ping was standing in front of them. When the Nine Shen Tower's cultivator recognized Lu Tianping, everyone's expression changed. It was not only because Lu Ping was able to fight against a late Dharma adept, but also because they suddenly remembered that something shocking had happened to Lu Tianping. He had 3 green sea snakes by his side, and it seemed that the green sea snakes had sent a great practitioner to investigate, but in the end, the 3 green sea snakes had not been taken away from Lu Ping. The green sea snake's venom was well known in the world, and almost every green sea snake's venom was different, and the venom would increase with the green sea snake's level of practice. After one's level of practice had reached the Dharma stage, every green sea snake's venom could be considered a rare poison in the world. However, although the green sea snake's venom was strange, it was affected by the level of practice. With Lu Ling-er's current peak core forging cultivation, even if she bit the Nine Shen Tower's cultivator, she would not be able to remove or expel the venom for the time being. With the friar's strength at the peak of the early Dharma stage, it was completely possible for him to suppress the venom. However, in reality, at this time, the wound on the Nine Shen Tower's cultivator's arm had already been frozen by frost. No matter how much he mobilized the inner yuan in his body, he could not suppress the cold venom in his arm at all. Unless he cut off his own arm, but if he did so, his physical body would be damaged. In the future, if he wanted to improve his level of practice, he would have to take a more arduous path than ordinary people. In reality, after Lu Ling-er had taken his breath, the cold venom stubbornly stuck to his arm and did not spread into the cultivator's body. It was also not suppressed by the cultivator's inner yuan in the slightest. Zhu Jiuwan had already understood the situation on his side at the first moment. He knew that today, he was afraid that he would be defeated by Lu Tianping. Originally, he had wanted to use the Nine Shen Tower's name to pressure Lu Ping into releasing the poison, but he did not expect that the Green Fox 9 bandits and Lu Tianping were actually jackals of the same tribe. At this time, Zhu Jiuwan remembered that when Lu Tianping first rose to prominence in the Central Plains, he had teamed up with Xie Tianyang of the Purple Sun Palace and Sang Yu of the Spirit-Taming Beast sect to fight against the 4th elder of the Tenma people, Ma Li. Previously, Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had attacked the Nine Shen Tower's 7-star tower and 8 trigrams tower master because of the Green Fox 9 bandits, causing the 7-star tower master and 8 trigrams tower master to be demoted one after another. This was why the previous 9 Palace Tower Master was automatically promoted to the 7-star Tower Master, ranked 10th among the direct disciples. Now, the person who had been captured by Lu Ping had the right to directly become the 8-star Tower Master, and Zhu Jiuwan also had the opportunity to take control of the 9 Palace Tower. Not long after Zhu Jiuwan took control of the 9 Palace Tower, he once again targeted the Green Fox 9 bandits. There was no other reason, but he simply wanted to establish his authority over the Green Fox 9 bandits. 2 of the 9 Profound Tower's Tower Masters were deposed one after another. Admittedly, it was because they coveted the women of the Green Fox 9 bandits, but it was also because they lost to Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu in an extremely ugly manner. But after Zhu Jiuwan took control of the Nine Palace Tower, there were quite a few voices in the sect who believed that the reason she was able to take control of the Nine Palace Tower was because she had a grandaunt named Pure Yang, Laozu. If not for this grandaunt supporting her, Zhu Jiuwan wouldn't even be able to enter the top 10 direct disciples. In fact, before Zhu Jiuwan took control of the Nine Palace Tower, when she was only ranked 11th among the direct disciples, there were similar voices in the Nine Profound Tower. They said that the reason she was able to become a direct disciple was because of 8th sister Zhu Laozu. But at that time, these voices were very low. Zhu Jiuwan had a certain level of ability, so she completely treated these rumors as the jealousy of others. But after taking control of the Nine Palace Tower, her status rose once again. The 9 Tower Masters of the Nine Profound Tower had always been the direct disciples of the direct disciples. The person in charge of the Nine Profound Tower, as well as Laozu, had always been groomed from among the 9 Tower Masters. Being able to become one of the 9 Tower Masters not only meant that one's strength was superb, but it also meant that the 9 Profound Tower had spared no effort in grooming one. Thus, the competition between the 9 Tower Masters had always been extremely fierce. Thus, whether it was intentional or not, the pressure of public opinion caused by taking control of the Nine Palace Tower this time was something that even Zhu Jiuwan, with 8th sister Zhu Laozu's support, found it hard to bear. Thus, Zhu Jiuwan urgently needed to establish her authority, and the target of her authority was naturally the Green Fox 9 bandits, the instigators of the change in the position of direct disciple of the Nine Profound Tower. Because of the battle between Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu with the direct disciples of the Nine Profound Tower, the Nine Profound Tower had directly demoted the 2 Tower Masters, but the 2 of them had also been summoned back by their respective sects to reflect on their mistakes. Without their support, wouldn't it be easy for the Green Fox 9 bandits to capture them? However, the usually arrogant Zhu Jiuwan chose to be cautious this time. She did not hesitate to invite the 2 Tower Masters of the 7-Star Tower and the 8 Trigrams Tower to capture the Green Fox 9 bandits together. Just like Zhu Jiuwan, the 8 Trigrams Tower Master had also been promoted from the 10th direct disciple to the 8th after the previous 2 Tower Masters were demoted. Although he did not receive as much criticism as Zhu Jiuwan, there were still people who coveted his position and were naturally eager to prove themselves. As for why they had invited the 7-Star Tower Master, it was very simple. Although Zhu Jiuwan had received a lot of criticism from the entire Nine Profound Tower, she still had the pure young cultivator, Laozu, behind her. There was no lack of people in the sect who would purposely try to curry favor with her. This 7-Star Tower Master and the other 4 direct adepts who had accompanied Zhu Jiuwan out this time were obviously because of this reason. In reality, their original plan had been progressing rather smoothly. For some unknown reason, the Green Fox 9 bandits had once again appeared near the Nine Profound Tower, and from the original 9, there were only 6 of them left. After Zhu Jiuwan and the others had captured 3 of them alive, the remaining 3 Dharma adepts, Green Fox, Green Tiger, and Green Wolf, who had the highest level of training, had headed south. Zhu Jiuwan and the others had chased them all the way and were just about to succeed in one fell swoop when the sudden appearance of Lu Tianping had ruined their plans. This time, Lu Tianping had once again stood up for the Green Fox 9 bandits. It was obvious that the Green Fox 9 bandits had some unknown relationship with Xie Tianyang, Sang Yu, and Lu Tianping. The Green Fox 9 bandits had always worked together. This time, Lu Ping had been puzzled as to why only Green Fox and the other 2 were together. He had initially thought that it was because the other 6 did not have a high enough level of training. But now, he found out that 3 of them had already been captured. However, he did not know where the other 3 were. At this point, Zhu Jiuwan's face had already turned green with anger. She opened her mouth and said, "How can the lives of a few lone practitioners be worth the lives of my 9 Profound Towers disciples? Lu Daoyu, if you insist on becoming an enemy of my 9 Profound Tower, have you thought about the consequences?" Lu Ping found it funny and said, "Since fellow Daoyu Zhu also thinks that my 3 good friends are just lone practitioners and their lives aren't worth anything, then I ask fellow Daoyu Zhu to release my 3 good friends. In exchange, I will also release your 8 Profound Towers 8 Trigrams Master." Exchanging 1 for 3, Your sect's 8 trigrams master's value is not low. Fellow Daoist Jew's words are indeed true. Although the Green Fox 9 bandits had already acknowledged Lu Ping as their master, even if it was not because of Sang Yu's status as Green Fox's sworn brother, Lu Ping would not deliberately use them as his slaves. In front of Zhu Jiuwan, he only treated them as friends. Naturally, Zhu Jiuwan did not know that the Green Fox 9 bandits had already acknowledged Lu Ping as their master. It was only right and proper for Lu Ping to stand up for them. She only knew that after failing on the verge of success, she would face even greater suspicion when she returned to the 9 Profound Tower. Even with her great-aunt's support, she might not be able to withstand the criticism of others. It was as if she could already see that the position of the Lord of the 9 Palaces, which she had obtained with great difficulty, would change hands once again. She would also become an ordinary direct disciple like the previous 2 lords who had been demoted. For a moment, her mind was in a mess, and the logic of her words was disordered, causing her own family to be dragged into this mess. At this time, it was clear that Lu Ping was standing up for the Green Fox 9 bandits, so Zhu Jiuwan no longer dared to throw tantrums. She only hoped that she could bring back the people who came with her in one piece. Otherwise, there would be no room for negotiation. Even if 8th Sister Zhu could cover the sky with one hand in the 9 Profound Tower, she would not have the face to occupy the position of 9 Hall's master. Zhu Jiuwan gritted her teeth and said, "Fine, as long as you release 8th Senior Brother, I will also release the 3 bandits. However, you must first cure my junior brother Shu of the cold poison." Lu Ping smiled, "Of course. If there is no need, I will not shed all pretense of cordiality and make an enemy of a sacred sect like the 9 Profound Tower. However, you have the advantage in numbers, so it is best that you release my 3 friends first." Zhu Jiuwan's face darkened. "Then when will you release my 8th senior brother?" Lu Ping said, "You can rest assured. When my friends and I retreat to a safe place, the 8 trigrams master will meet up with you with the antidote." Chapter 1192. At this moment, the 7-star house master, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. "How can we trust you? What if you run away and refuse to let them go?" Lu Ping laughed involuntarily. "I've already said that I have no intention of becoming enemies with the 9 Profound Tower. It's one thing for all of you to be defeated by me, as it was only a personal spar after all. The 9 Profound Tower will naturally not cause trouble for me because of that. However, if I were to kidnap the 8 trigrams house master and poison another direct disciple of your sect, then I would truly become enemies with the 9 Profound Tower. I still have a sect behind me, so I would not do such an unwise thing." The 7-star house master snorted coldly. "I hope you keep your word. Otherwise, even if you flee to the ends of the earth, the entire 9 Profound Tower will definitely hunt you down. Moreover, the North Sea Zhenling sect will definitely be suppressed." With a trace of reluctance, Zhu Jiuwan took out the black teapot from before. She turned the lid of the teapot, and 3 people came out of the teapot. They were Qing Bao, ranked 4th among the Cyan Fox 9 bandits, Qing Qiu, ranked 7th, and Qing Hu, ranked 8th. The 3 of them clearly did not know what was going on. Their spiritual energy was completely sealed, and they looked battered and exhausted. It was obvious that they had suffered quite a bit after being captured. Qing Hu was about to burst into curses when he saw this, and Qing Hu and Qing Lang's expressions did not look too good either. Fortunately, the 2 of them were still rational, and Qing Lang once again stopped Qing Hu before he could say anything. Lu Ping waved his hand, and a stream of water turned into 3 water blankets that caught the 3 people who had fallen from mid-air. Only then did the 3 of them see Qing Hu and the other 2, as well as Lu Ping, who was standing in front of them. When they saw Lu Ping, the 3 of them were clearly taken aback. Xiao Qi and Qing Qiu's faces flashed with joy, but when they saw Lu Ping's eyes flash with a frightening azure light, Qing Qiu jumped in fright. After the trio landed, Qing Hu and the others quickly rushed forward to check on Qing Bao and the others. However, they only saw Lu Ping pointing his finger, and a few rays of purplish-blue light shot into Qing Bao and the others' bodies. Immediately after, their bodies shuddered violently and their cultivation auras burst out from their bodies because they couldn't restrain them in time. The 9 mystical towers' seal on their cultivations instantly shattered. Not far away, the faces of the 7-star pavilion master and Zhu Jiuwan sank. It had to be known that the technique they had used to imprison Qing Bao and the other two was a secret technique of the Nine Mysteries Tower. Originally, Zhu Jiuwan had wanted to have Lu Ping beg them to save some face. Never could he have imagined that their secret technique was not even worth mentioning in front of Lu Ping. Not only did they fail to save face, it seemed like they had been slapped in the face even more painfully, causing the fear they felt towards Lu Ping to grow even deeper. In a forest 25 kilometers away from the Qingming River, the 8 trigrams parlor's master looked at Lu Ping and said in astonishment, "So it's North Sea water sword immortal. I didn't lose unjustly." Lu Ping smiled and said, "I used the fog as a cover to launch a sneak attack. That's why you fell into my trap. Don't take it to heart." After saying that, Lu Ping handed the bottle containing a drop of sweet due to the 8 trigrams parlor's master and said, "This is the antidote. You just need to spit it on your wound, and the snake venom in your senior brother's body will be neutralized." The 8 trigrams parlor's master took the bottle and looked at Qing Hu and the other two. Then, he cupped his fists at Lu Ping and said, "I'll take my leave now. If we meet again in the future, I'll definitely seek Brother Lu's guidance. May we meet again." After saying that, he turned into a ray of light and disappeared. Qing Hu opened her mouth to say something but was interrupted by Lu Ping, who said, "The 9 Profound Mansions people are already on their way here. It seems like they have some kind of secret technique to communicate with each other. Previously, this 8 trigrams parlor's master was sealed in a spatial artifact by me, so he lost contact with the outside world. That's why the 9 Profound Mansions people couldn't sense him. Now that I've released him, they've already come to meet up with us." Lu Ping's divine sense was far stronger than the 9 Profound Mansions people, so he could sense the 9 Profound Mansions movements before they did. So, he released a ray of light and swept everyone away, heading northeast. By the time the 9 Profound Mansions people arrived, Lu Ping and the others had already disappeared without a trace. The 8 trigrams parlor's master smiled bitterly and said, "I've already said that they've already left." The 7-star parlor master signaled him with his eyes to keep quiet. The 8 trigrams parlor master followed the 7-star parlor master's gaze and saw that Zhu Jiuwan's expression was very ugly. At this time, Zhu Jiuwan finally thought of something and turned around to ask, "8th senior brother, did that Lu Tianping leave behind the antidote?" "Oh." The 8 trigrams parlor master quickly took out the jade bottle that Lu Ping had left for him and gave it to junior brother Shu, who was bitten by the green sea snake. Junior Shu opened the jade bottle and sniffed it. However, he did not smell anything. After a moment of hesitation, he dripped the drop of dew from the jade bottle onto the wound on his arm. Then, he saw that the cold poison on his arm was quickly dissipating. Junior brother Shu immediately relaxed and sighed, "It's a pity that there's only one drop. If there's some left, I can give it to the alchemy grandmasters in the sect's alchemy lab to study it. Maybe they can refine the antidote. In the future, when we face the green sea snake, even if we can't completely defeat it, at least we can alleviate the poison." Seeing that junior brother Shu's poison had been cured, Zhu Jiuwan immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Although this trip was fruitless, at least no one died. After returning to the 9 mystical tower, even if they were ridiculed by others, with the support of her grandaunt, they could at least keep their position as the 9 halls parlor master. However, after hearing junior brother Shu's words, Zhu Jiuwan still looked at the 8 trigrams parlor master. If they could really bring the antidote back to the sect's alchemy lab and develop an antidote for the green sea snake poison, then it would be a pleasant surprise. It was much better than returning empty-handed. She just didn't know if the 8 trigrams parlor master also had the same idea and secretly kept the extra antidote. When the 8 trigrams parlor master saw Zhu Jiuwan's gaze, how could he not understand her meaning? He couldn't help but regret following Zhu Jiuwan on this trip. However, the 8 trigrams parlor master had seen how Lu Ping gave him the antidote. His heart turned black and he opened his mouth to say, "Well, actually, the antidote is not something else. I saw with my own eyes that little girl spit a mouthful of saliva into the jade bottle." Zhu Jiuwan suddenly felt a wave of disgust. Junior brother Shu had previously smeared the antidote on his arm and kept sniffing it with his nose. When he heard the 8 trigrams parlor master say that the so-called antidote was just a mouthful of saliva from Lu Linger's mouth, he immediately pointed at the 8 trigrams parlor master and was speechless. His face was red, as if he was about to vomit everything in his stomach. The 8 trigrams parlor master looked at everyone with an innocent face. What he said was not wrong, but in his heart, he was already very happy. The 7 stars parlor master shook his head helplessly. The other disciples of the 9 mystical tower also had a strange expression on their faces. Lu Ping and the others flew all the way to a mountain range 1,000 miles away. Only then did they slowly descend from the sky. Turning back to look at Qing Hu and the other 5, Lu Ping asked, "Where are the other 3? Everyone's faces turned gloomy. Qing Hu said, "The other 3 brothers have all fallen." Lu Ping frowned and said, "He's dead. Was it done by the 9 mystical tower?" Qing Hu's face was a little ugly. Just as he was about to say something, Qing Lang, who was beside him, said, "Yes, we discovered an ancient ruin. When we were exploring it, something unexpected happened and alerted the people of the 9 mystical tower. After we left the ruin, we were accidentally discovered by the cultivators of the 9 mystical tower who were searching the mountain. When we broke out of the encirclement, 5th brother, 6th brother, and 9th sister were killed by the people of the 9 mystical tower." Lu Ping glanced at the remorseful Qing Hu. He knew that there was more to this matter than meets the eye. However, Qing Lang was obviously unwilling to talk about it, so Lu Ping naturally wouldn't deliberately ask. He only said, "That means the ruin is near the 9 mystical tower, and it has already been discovered by them?" This time, it was Qing Hu who shook her head and said, "It's impossible for them to have discovered it. The ruin is extremely well hidden, and we were only able to enter it by chance after obtaining a token to enter it. Unfortunately, our cultivation was not high enough, so we only managed to obtain some benefits from the outer perimeter. Who would have thought that we would still alert the people of the 9 mystical tower? While we were breaking out of the encirclement, 5th brother, 6th brother, and 9th sister were killed by them." Lu Ping asked, "How long ago was this?" Qing Hu thought for a moment, then said, "About 20 to 30 years ago. At that time, only Qing Hu and I had reached the Dharma stage. At that time, the people who tried to kill us were the 2 leaders of the 9 mystical tower. If it wasn't for the fact that the 9 mystical tower's cultivators wanted to pry the secret of the ruin from us and let their guard down because they knew that we would not be able to escape, and I had a teleportation charm with me from the ruin, I'm afraid that the remaining 6 of us would have died at their hands." Qing Hu finally found an opportunity to say loudly, "The 2 leaders of the 9 mystical tower are very famous in the world of cultivators, but they are people who deceive the world. When they saw eldest sister and 6th sister, they wanted to violate them." Qing Lang, who was standing at the side, said, "All right, that's enough." Lu Ping furrowed his brows. After that, the battle between Brother Xie and Brother Sang and the 2 leaders of the 9 mystical tower happened. Qing Hu did not expect Lu Ping to know about this, and could not help but blush. "That's right. Originally, I called Brother Xie and Brother Sang along to search for the ruin, but although the 2 leaders of the 9 mystical tower could not find the ruin, they kept a tight watch over the area. When Brother Xie and Brother Sang arrived, they were quickly discovered, and so my 2 brothers decided to teach the 2 leaders a lesson." Qing Hu paused for a moment, then continued, "Fortunately, the 2 leaders of the 9 mystical tower had their own selfish motives. They wanted to take all the benefits from the ruin for themselves, and so they did not inform their own sect. That was why they suffered such a great loss at the hands of Brother Xie and Brother Sang." Lu Ping nodded. He could guess what happened next without needing to be said. Lu Ping thought for a moment, then asked, "Apart from escaping the pursuit of the 9 mystical tower, did you come looking for me in the south for any other reason?" Qing Hu nodded, "That's right. We wanted to ask Master to lend us a hand in exploring the ruin." Even though they already knew that the ruin was near the 9 mystical tower, Qing Hu and the rest still wanted to explore it. Lu Ping was surprised. "This ruin is extremely important to you?" Qing Hu replied, "That's right. Has Master heard of the thieving heaven Laozu?" Chapter 1193. Thieving Heaven Laozu? Lu Ping looked at Qing Hu and the others in surprise. Seeing the six nodding, Lu Ping chuckled and opened up a spatial rift, releasing the confused Dabao from the golden house. Dabao was thinking about the lab rat left on Huangli Island and was released by Lu Ping from the golden house. He still had an infatuated expression on his face, causing Qing Hu and the others to look at each other in confusion, not knowing why Lu Ping released this person. Dabao was stunned. Then, he heard Lu Ping laughing and scolding him. "What are you doing? Are you thinking about your little white again?" Bao reflexively wiped his palm across his mouth and loudly said, "Who would have thought of that? Who would have thought of that? I just thought of a way to fish for spirit stones. I'll put it into practice when I get back to Huangli Island and make a good profit." Saying so, Bao stood at the side with disdain, raising his head higher than his head. But immediately, Bao heard a mocking voice resounding in his ears, "Thieving heaven ancestor." "Who?" Dabao quivered and jumped 3 feet high. His small eyes glimmered as he looked at Lu Ping and Qing Hu's group of 6 and asked impatiently, "Who is talking about thieving heaven Laozu?" Lu Ping smiled and did not say anything. Qing Lang coughed and said, "We found a cave dwelling left behind by thieving heaven Laozu and obtained some things from it." Before Qing Lang finished speaking, Bao had already jumped in front of Qing Lang. It was unknown how his bloated body could become so agile. He grabbed Qing Lang's arm and said, "Go, go, go, go to thieving heaven ancestors' cave. You definitely did not take all the treasures inside. Let treasure grandpa bring you to collect more." Qing Hu heard Lu Ping's words and was overjoyed. "How do you know that there are still treasures inside?" Dabao turned around and looked at them contemptuously. "Do you know who thieving heaven Laozu is?" Azure Fox and the other 5 looked at each other. Then Dabao continued, "The thieving heaven ancestor is the most glorious figure in the history of our rat clan. He was originally just an ordinary spirit-seeking rat, but in the future, he grew into a mid-Dharma adept and became the famous thieving heaven ancestor in the cultivation world. In the future, our rat clan would become a legendary figure like the thieving heaven ancestor, and we would call ourselves the treasure-seeking rat clan. Every spirit-seeking rat's ultimate goal is to become a treasure-seeking rat. Unfortunately, although we have produced a few geniuses since ancient times, none of them were able to reach the level of the thieving heaven ancestor. The identity of the treasure-seeking rat has always been talked about by our rat clan, but in the end, no one was able to become a treasure-seeking rat." Hearing Dabao's explanation, Lu Ping finally understood why Dabao kept emphasizing his identity as a treasure-seeking rat after he advanced into the blood condensation realm and refined his hyoid bone. Thieving heaven Laozu's reputation in the cultivation world was not small, but it was not because he was a powerful great medic. In fact, thieving heaven Laozu only became famous after he advanced into the early Dharma stage and the mid-Dharma stage for a few hundred years. After that, he disappeared without a trace. The reason why thieving heaven Laozu's reputation was spread to this day was because he could be considered as the #1 thief in the cultivation world. Many of the secret treasures of large and medium-sized sects in the Central Plains had been stolen by him. However, what really made him famous was the rumor that after thieving heaven Laozu advanced into the mid-Dharma stage, he successfully sneaked into the inheritance place of a holy land. No one knew what he stole. Thieving heaven Laozu did not say a word, and the holy land that was robbed did not come forward to refute the rumor. Although there were all kinds of speculations in the cultivation world, and many cultivators related to the Holy Land had asked this question directly. However, some of the high-level cultivators from the Holy Land who obviously knew the inside story would often evade the question when they were asked. It was obvious that they were unwilling to talk about this matter. This made some of the cultivators who originally did not believe in the rumor even more convinced that thieving heaven Laozu had indeed entered the inheritance place of a holy land. For a time, thieving heaven Laozu was called the #1 thief in the world. Thieving heaven Laozu's identity as a rat demon was not a secret, but he called himself a treasure-seeking rat. The cultivation world had always thought that he was a hidden and rare demon race. After all, although there were many species of rats, they were all low-level races. There was almost no one who had the potential to advance into the blood condensation stage, let alone a rat like thieving heaven Laozu who had pushed his cultivation all the way to the mid-Dharma stage. However, What they did not expect was that thieving heaven Laozu himself was actually just a spirit-seeking rat of the lowest level in the cultivation world. And treasure-seeking rat was just an honorific name given to him by the spirit-seeking rat clan, not a race. Dabao continued, thieving heaven Laozu is known as the number one thief in the world. He has more than one cave mansion in the cultivation world, and he placed the treasures he collected in these caves. However, it is not so easy to find thieving heaven Laozu's things. Even if you find the cave mansion, it is impossible to collect all the things inside. There must be hidden places that have not been discovered yet. What Dabao said was not nonsense, because thieving heaven Laozu was a figure from nearly 10,000 years ago. However, until now, the cultivation world had publicly discovered more than 10 secret caves of thieving heaven Laozu, and each one had more or less a batch of treasures. However, what was truly amazing was that after discovering a thieving heaven secret cave, after the treasures inside were collected and taken away, the latecomers would be able to find something that the former couldn't find. Even after several groups of cultivators had discovered the secret caves, the treasures inside were still not completely discovered. It was as if every thieving heaven secret cave was a treasure bowl. Even if the treasures inside were not precious, they were endless. The 6 of them naturally knew that the treasures inside the thieving heaven secret cave were not completely collected. In fact, after they entered the secret cave, they only collected a few treasures in the periphery. Even so, they were lucky enough to survive the pursuit of 9 mystical tower. Azure Fox brought them south to find Lu Tianping. Other than seeking his protection, she also hoped that Lu Ping could lead them to this secret cave. After all, Lu Ping was their nominal master, and his strength and means had reached a height that they admired. Azure Fox exclaimed, "You mean you can collect all the treasures inside the thieving heaven secret cave?" Azure Fox knew that although Dabao was the weakest among Lu Ping's followers, he was Lu Ping's number one spirit pet and had an extraordinary relationship with Lu Ping. Moreover, no matter how important Lu Ping's role was, a spirit-seeking mouse that had cultivated to core forging stage should be praised as not easy. Thus, Azure Fox was very respectful towards this seemingly unreliable fatty. Dabao said arrogantly, "Don't forget, after thieving heaven Laozu, I, Dabao, am the top spirit-seeking mouse among the spirit-seeking mice, and even the entire rat demon clan. I don't have the confidence to find all the treasures in thieving heaven Laozu's secret cave, but if I can find more than others, then there will be no problem at all." Azure Fox and the others looked at each other and chose to believe Dabao's words. After all, thieving heaven Laozu was from the spirit-seeking mouse clan. If there was anyone who was most familiar with thieving heaven Laozu, it would be his descendant after all. However, the spirit-seeking mouse clan was a low-rank demon clan. Normally, a blood condensation demon clan was a rare genius. Now that there was a spirit-seeking mouse at core forging stage standing in front of them, who would dare to despise Dabao's authority in the thieving heaven's secret cave? After all, Dabao could be considered as a rare genius in the rat demon clan that only appeared once in 1,000 or even several thousand years. Seeing Dabao's smug face, Lu Ping couldn't stand it anymore. He kicked Dabao's fat butt, coughed, and asked Qing Hu, "How did you find this thieving heaven's treasure?" Qing Hu nodded and said, "How did you find this place?" Azure Fox said, "It can be considered a coincidence. I was just taking a stroll in a market, but I didn't expect to find this." As she spoke, Azure Fox took out a small axe that was about the length of a middle finger. The material of this small axe looked like an ordinary high-grade instrument, but there were a few decorative patterns on the surface of the axe. In fact, this small axe was bought by Azure Fox from a late blood condensation adept. Azure Fox had even exchanged a high-grade instrument with the friar for it. Azure Wolf continued, "Although Big Sister's Shen Flower Axe is already a top-grade spirit-nurturing instrument, and there is a possibility that it can be upgraded to a spirit-nurturing instrument, but spiritual materials of this quality are extremely hard to find. Now that Big Sister has just entered the mid-Dharma stage, although spirit-nurturing instruments can still be used, they will still restrict Big Sister's abilities. So we wanted to ask for an axe or some other spiritual treasure for Big Sister, but we didn't expect to find a key to the thieving heaven's secret cave." Lu Ping fiddled with the axe in his hand for a moment and said, "This is the high-grade mystic instrument. That's him. Azure Wolf said in a rough voice, every time thieving Laozu builds a secret cave, he will use the original form of the most precious treasure in the cave to open the cave. Since this small axe is the key, then the most precious treasure in the cave must be an axe. And with thieving Laozu's status, this axe must be a spiritual treasure. Spiritual treasure? An axe? Lu Ping and De Bao exclaimed as they suddenly thought of something. Azure Fox knew what they were thinking and nodded. That's right, it's the spiritual treasure of thieving Laozu. The thieving heaven's godly axe that Laozu has dug up countless treasuries. Chapter 1194. Thieving Divine Axe. De Bao's eyes almost popped out of his eye sockets. His expression was unreadable, and no one knew what he was thinking. If thieving Laozu was the most glorious human of the spirit-seeking mice clan, then the thieving divine axe could be said to be the #1 divine weapon that the spirit-seeking mice clan worshipped. This treasure was only at the level of a Class 1 tribulation spirit treasure, and it was not famous for killing, but for destroying all kinds of protective formations and opening up all kinds of tunnels. However, it was a spirit treasure after all. In the hands of thieving Laozu, it could easily break through formations and rock tunnels. In the hands of others, it might become a killing weapon. However, this treasure was also a must-have for De Bao. The thieving divine axe was almost regarded as the sacred treasure of the spirit-seeking mice clan. Although this treasure was not in the hands of the spirit-seeking mice clan, this did not prevent the spirit-seeking mice clan from regarding the thieving divine axe as their clan's treasure. Seeing De Bao's uncertain expression, Qinghu naturally understood the reason immediately. Lu Ping and De Bao had been together for a long time, so he naturally knew what De Bao was thinking. However, this item was discovered by Qinghu, and with De Bao's current cultivation, he naturally could not control a spirit treasure. However, Lu Ping was naturally embarrassed to say these words. In the end, it was Qinghu who smiled and said, "Brother Bao, I naturally know what the thieving divine axe means to you. However, my natal magic treasure cannot survive the thunder tribulation and become a Class 1 tribulation spirit treasure for the time being. Therefore, I would like to ask for the thieving divine axe for the time being. In the future, when Qinghu finds suitable top-grade spiritual materials to upgrade the magic treasure, I will definitely return this thieving divine axe." After hearing Qinghu's words, Qinghu's expression became somewhat ugly. He opened his mouth and said, "Why? This is a treasure that we obtained with great difficulty, and we even sacrificed the lives of Little 5, Little 6, and Little 9. Not only Qinghu, but the rest of the 9 bandits, including Qinghu, were also somewhat unhappy. However, when Qinghu suddenly glanced at them, they realized that the real decision in front of them was not this rat demon, but Lu Tianping, who was standing behind her. He was their master, their savior, and also the person that they relied on to enter the thieving heaven treasure again. In fact, when Qinghu and the 9 bandits came to seek protection from Lu Ping, they had already given the thieving heaven treasure to Lu Ping. Everything found inside and all the distribution rights belonged to Lu Ping as the master. However, at this time, perhaps Lu Ping was not used to the authority of this master, or at least he had to respect the contributions of his subordinates, so he did not say anything. De Bao was extremely shrewd, and there was nothing that he did not understand at this point. He immediately smiled and said, "That's not good. After all, the thieving heaven treasure was exchanged with our fellow Taoists' lives. Even if De Bao is a moneygrubber, he will not be so greedy." Speaking of this, De Bao pondered for a while and said, "How about this? Fellow Daoist Qinghu's natal magic weapon is a Xianhua giant axe, right? I, De Bao, will take care of all the spiritual materials needed to upgrade this Xianhua giant axe to a spiritual treasure in the future. When the Xianhua giant axe is upgraded to a spiritual treasure, how about I exchange it from fellow Daoist Qinghu?" Then, De Bao seemed to feel that all the bargaining chips were not enough, so he became generous and said, "How about this? I will help fellow Daoist Qinghu to upgrade your magic weapon, but I will add one more thing. Before I have the ability to control the thieving heaven axe, fellow Daoist Qinghu can use the axe as a spiritual treasure. What do you think?" Before Qinghu agreed, Qinghu first asked, You really can get those supreme grade spiritual materials to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe?" You're not bluffing, are you? The Qinghu 9 bandits had robbed many houses in the past, but until now, they only had 2 or 3 spiritual materials to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe. How could Qinghu believe that Dabao, a rat demon at the core forging stage, had such an ability? However, with the help of Lu Ping, there was still a possibility. At this time, Qinghu, who had always been honest and straightforward, also used narrow-minded words. His words were obviously questioning Dabao, but in fact, he was asking for a guarantee from Lu Ping. However, they still underestimated Treasure Lord. Treasure Lord's most valuable things were inseparable from Lu Ping's help, but these things were useless to Lu Ping. Moreover, over the years, Dabao had used these things given to him by Lu Ping to exchange for treasures. Even Lu Ping would go through Dabao's collection when he needed them. As for how much wealth Dabao had, even Lu Ping himself did not know. Moreover, the power to deal with these things was in the hands of Dabao. To gather the spiritual materials needed to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe, Dabao really didn't need Lu Ping to worry about it. Before Qinghu could finish his words, he saw a lump of golden red stone in Dabao's hand. Qinghu's eyes lit up, Qinghu's eyes narrowed, and Qinghu's eyes bulged. He exclaimed, "Meteorite gold red iron, such a big piece." Dabao said proudly, "How about it? This treasure is one of the main spiritual materials needed to upgrade your Xianhua giant axe. Of course, you don't need this much. When we have the space, find a refining grandmaster to cut a piece of it for you. I don't have the rest with me, but don't worry. After we settle down, Treasure Lord will think of a way." This piece of meteorite gold red iron was one of the treasures that flew out from the explosion of Hanya Laozu's storage artifact when he was killed by Lu Ping. Because of the characteristics of the meteorite gold red iron, it was not damaged at all. Although Dabao only showed one piece, spiritual materials that could be used to upgrade spiritual treasures were extremely rare. If Dabao said that he could immediately get all the treasures that could be used to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe, Qinghu and the others would not believe it. Dabao understood that the thieving heaven-hidden treasure was discovered by Qinghu and the others, but he also knew that no one would give up their natal magic weapon for a spiritual treasure. As long as there was a chance to upgrade a natal magic weapon to a spiritual treasure, the power of a spiritual treasure of the same level would not be comparable to that of a natal magic weapon. Therefore, no matter how famous the thieving heaven divine axe was, if Qinghu had to choose between a natal magic weapon and the thieving heaven divine axe, Dabao was sure that Qinghu would choose the natal magic weapon. Sure enough, when Qinghu heard Dabao's conditions, she immediately smiled and said, "Then it's a deal." Dabao also smiled and said, "It's a deal." At this time, Lu Ping finally laughed. "It's rare to see you, Dabao, being so generous for once. You're actually willing to use so many treasures." There was no dispute between the two sides, and without Lu Ping's participation, the two sides settled their differences. Lu Ping was naturally happy to see this, and did not forget to tease Dabao. Lu Ping turned to Qinghu and asked, "Where is the thieving heaven-hidden treasure in 9 Mystical Towers territory?" Qinghu answered, "In the depths of 9 Mystical Mountain." Lu Ping was taken aback, and he smiled bitterly. "It's so close to 9 Mystical Tower, no wonder it was discovered by them." Qinghu also smiled bitterly. "That's right, but the last time we ventured into 9 Mystical Mountains thieving heaven-hidden treasure, we obtained a piece of information from it. This time, the main reason why we ventured into 9 Mystical Towers territory again is because of this piece of information." Lu Ping was taken aback. "Oh, what is it?" "Thieving heaven pill." Qinghu said word by word, then asked Lu Ping, "Master is not only one of the top 3rd-generation cultivators, but also a famous alchemy grandmaster. I wonder if you've heard of a miraculous pill like the thieving heaven pill?" The 9 Profound Mountain was located in a mountain range to the southwest of the 9 Profound Tower. The mountain range wasn't very tall, but it was extremely steep. The 9 Profound Tower didn't get its name from the 9 Profound Mountain. On the contrary, it was called the 9 Profound Mountain because it was very close to the 9 Profound Tower. Lu Ping led Qinghu and the rest in a circle, sneaking into 9 Mystical Towers territory and arriving at the outskirts of 9 Mystical Mountain. Once they were close to 9 Mystical Mountain, Lu Ping used the art of sea deception and constantly changed his appearance to observe the situation in Nine Mystical Mountain. After returning to their base, Lu Ping sighed helplessly. The situation is a little more complicated than we thought. Nine Mystical Tower has already put the entire Nine Mystical Tower under surveillance. If we enter again, even if we can avoid the Nine Mystical Tower spies, once we open the treasure trove, the commotion will definitely alert the Nine Mystical Tower's cultivators again. They will quickly find the entrance to the treasure trove and set up an ambush outside. It won't be like last time, when the Nine Mystical Tower's people were alerted. They arrived too late and could no longer find the entrance. Qinghu frowned. Nine Mystical Tower seems to be very concerned about the thieving heaven treasure trove. Lu Ping nodded. The more concerned they are, the more precious the treasures in the treasure trove will be. De Bao did not care about that. There were only treasures in his eyes. What treasures are you talking about? Lu Ping thought about it. The thieving heaven divine axe can be considered the treasure that made Laozu famous, the tool he relied on to make a living, but now he has lost it here, and this place is so close to Nine Mystical Tower. Qinghu immediately gasped. You're saying that this place is very likely the location of Laozu's most important treasure trove? Back then, it was rumored that thieving heaven Laozu had once snuck into a sacred land to steal. Could it be that the sacred land that was stolen was Nine Mystical Tower, and this is the stronghold that thieving heaven Laozu set up to infiltrate Nine Mystical Tower? And the reason why Nine Mystical Tower has mobilized so many people is because the treasures that were stolen from Nine Mystical Tower are also in the treasure trove? Lu Ping nodded. Most importantly, after news of thieving heaven Laozu infiltrating a sacred land spread in the cultivation world, thieving heaven Laozu has not appeared in the cultivation world since. Chapter 1195. Hearing Lu Ping's analysis, Qing Lang had a flash of doubt in his mind, but his attention was soon attracted by the possible treasures in the thieving heaven's hidden treasure. You are saying that thieving heaven Laozu was already heavily injured when he escaped from the sacred land, and this hidden treasure became thieving heaven Laozu's final burial ground? No wonder you said that this hidden treasure is very likely to be the most important hidden treasure left behind by thieving heaven Laozu. When everyone heard this, they immediately let out low exclamations. Among them, Da Bao even jumped up and down. He seemed to be extremely excited, and his movements weren't affected by his fat figure at all. At this time, Qinghu asked with a smile, Master seems to be quite interested in thieving heaven Laozu. You actually know so much about thieving heaven Laozu. This was the question that flashed in Qing Lang's mind previously. After all, thieving heaven Laozu was a person from 10,000 years ago, and even now, legends about him had spread like wildfire, but it was still suspicious for someone like Lu Ping to know so many details about him. Even though Qinghu had her doubts, she could only be doubts in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping only smiled and did not answer, so Qinghu naturally would not pursue the matter. Lu Ping knew about these things because of the fragments of memories left in Fei Tian Laozu's pure young soul. This was considered as Lu Ping's biggest secret. He naturally would not reveal these things. And Fei Tian Laozu knew about these things not only because his era was closer to thieving heaven Laozu, but also because his location allowed him to obtain more secrets of the cultivation world. More importantly, Ying Tian sect had once obtained a hidden treasure of thieving heaven, from which they learned some things about thieving heaven Laozu, which were passed down from generation to generation, and were eventually obtained by Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled. Qinghu, let's talk about the thieving heaven pill. Although you entered the thieving heaven treasure trove in a hurry, how did you find traces of the thieving heaven pill? Qinghu said regretfully, we only found a jade bottle with the thieving heaven pill's name on it, but there were only some dregs left inside. Thieving heaven pill was also a heaven-defying pill created by thieving heaven Laozu in the past. Thieving heaven Laozu's original intention of refining this pill was to improve the low-rank bloodline of spirit-seeking mice, in other words, to improve the innate aptitude of spirit-seeking mice. In fact, there was no alchemist in the cultivation world who didn't have this idea. Besides, it wasn't that there weren't similar methods to improve one's aptitude. It was just that all of these methods required rare treasures, just like the fruit that Lu Ping's direct disciple, Du Jialuo, ate when he was young. They were all treasures that could only be found by luck. Thieving Heaven Laozu was probably like this. When he was still a mouse demon at the blood refining stage, he was fortunate enough to eat a spirit fruit of heaven and earth during a foraging process, which cleansed his body and improved his aptitude, causing his cultivation to soar. Later on, Thieving Heaven Laozu focused on alchemy and had a fortuitous encounter, which pushed his cultivation all the way to the Dharma manifestation stage. And Thieving Heaven Laozu's ambition was not ordinary. He wanted to improve the innate aptitude of spirit-seeking mice. How many spirit-seeking mice were there in the cultivation world? Perhaps even Kai Tian's 7th patriarch did not know the answer to this question. However, to improve the aptitude of a race, perhaps only Kai Tian's 7th patriarch could do it. At the very least, Thieving Heaven Ancestor could not take out those rare heavenly treasures for each of the mice to improve their aptitude, otherwise, those so-called heavenly treasures would not be called heavenly treasures. But Thieving Heaven Laozu really had this belief and struggled in the cultivation world for hundreds of years. For this reason, he constantly improved those methods that could improve aptitude, hoping to replace those rare treasures with spirit herbs that were as common as possible or not too precious. However, this process was extremely difficult, and the amount of spirit herbs needed was enormous. Even if Thieving Heaven Laozu reduced the rarity of the spirit herbs used, it was only using lesser treasures to replace more precious treasures, using rarer 5,000-years-old spirit herbs to replace 5,000-years-old spirit herbs, using 3,000-years-old spirit herbs to replace 5,000-years-old spirit herb. And in the process of replacement, because of the sufficient amount of medicinal ingredients, the number of spirit herbs needed was often even greater, but the pills refined might not be able to completely reach the effect of improving innate aptitude. But soon, a problem arose. Although Thieving Heaven Laozu was trying his best to reduce the grade of spirit herbs needed for these heaven-defying pills, while rare treasures were rare, they were not so easy to obtain. 3,000 to 5,000 years old spirit herbs were not dog's tail grass. Furthermore, in order to not reduce the medicinal effect, the amount of these things needed was extremely large. Thieving Heaven Laozu soon fell into a predicament. He could not obtain enough spirit herbs to complete his dream. In desperation, Thieving Heaven Laozu could only take a risk, that was to steal. As a result, all the large and small sects in Central Plains that specialized in cultivating spirit herbs were targeted by Thieving Heaven Laozu. Thieving Heaven Laozu's reputation soared, but he also became the rat of the cultivation world. Everyone wanted to beat him up. However, Thieving Heaven Laozu was indeed worthy of being the most outstanding spirit-seeking rat in the last 10,000 years. Many of the defensive formations in the cultivation world's spirit herb gardens were all broken by him. Many famous great cultivators were alarmed by him, but they could not catch an ordinary Dharma incarnation rat demon. Finally, he targeted the 5 sacred lands. In terms of cultivating spirit herbs, which sect in the cultivation world could compare to the treasures of the sacred lands? There were rumors in the cultivation world that Thieving Heaven Laozu succeeded in the sacred lands, but then he disappeared, and there was no news of this person in the cultivation world. But now it seemed that Thieving Heaven Laozu might have escaped from the 9 mystical tower and stole the spirit herbs, but he obviously suffered a big loss and probably couldn't have survived. In the cultivation world, there were still some spirit pills refined by Thieving Heaven Laozu. These spirit pills were collectively known as Thieving Heaven pills. Most of them were accidentally discovered by cultivators in the thousands of years after. There were very few of them, but each of them could be regarded as the best among the spirit pills. Additionally, most of these spirit pills were related to improving a cultivator's aptitude. Even if they couldn't completely improve a cultivator's aptitude, taking a pill would allow a cultivator to rapidly increase their cultivation base or greatly enhance a certain aspect of their body. These spirit pills were not only the dream of every cultivator, but also the obsession of every alchemist. Thieving Heaven Divine Axe, Thieving Heaven Pill, just these 2 items alone were enough for Lu Ping to take the risk and make the trip. Tonight, only you, me, and Dabao will go, the others will stay outside to provide support. Lu Ping said to Qing Hu. For cultivators like Lu Ping and Qing Hu, day or night was nothing to them. The reason why Lu Ping chose to sneak into the 9 mystical mountain at night was mainly to cover for Dabao. No one knew how many treasures Thieving Heaven Laozu had left in the cultivation world, but some people inadvertently discovered that if they brought along a spirit-seeking mouse when exploring thieving heaven Laozu's treasures, they could easily enter the treasures and find more treasures. At this time, the cultivators realized that thieving heaven ancestor spent so much effort to leave behind the hidden treasures. It might be because he wanted to pass his inheritance to his descendants, or because of his background. The spirit-seeking rat could easily find the treasures he was hiding. In other words, thieving heaven ancestors' painstaking efforts were all in vain. His descendants were still one of the most lowly races among the monster race. The treasures he left behind for his descendants were all found by his own descendants under the control of others. In the middle of the night, Qinghu flew towards the 9 mystical mountain while suppressing her speed. Even though she tried her best to hide her aura, she was still discovered by the cultivators of 9 mystical tower. On an empty peak of the 9 mystical mountain, 9 palace tower Lord Zhu Julwan gritted his teeth and shouted, "It's her, this bitch, the boss of the Qinghu 9 bandit." Shut up. A sturdy man in his 30s did not care about what kind of powerful background Zhu Julwan had. He opened his mouth and shouted coldly, causing Zhu Julwan to obediently shut her mouth. However, Zhu Julwan's expression was obviously extremely indignant, but the person in front of her made her extremely fearful, so she did not dare to act rashly. There were obviously other cultivators of the 9 mystical tower on the peak, but they all tactfully shut their mouths at this time. Only one person was lying on a boulder, muttering about a stalk of grass that he had plucked from somewhere. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and mumbled, "Enough, second brother. I know you're waiting for Lu Tianping to appear, but I advise you to call Boss Wei over. You're not much stronger than me. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I'm afraid you're not Lu Tianping's match." This person was naturally the third of the 9 mystical tower's direct disciples, Chang Laosan of the 3 Talents Pavilion, who had once fought with Lu Ping. The second brother he spoke of was obviously the 2 Rights Tower Lord, who was ranked second. They had obviously gathered here because they had expected Lu Ping to bring Qinghu back to search for the thieving heaven's hidden treasure. Qinghu's appearance at this time was just a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Not good. Qinghu seems to have sensed something. She suddenly turned around and ran out of the 9 mystical mountain. Could it be that Lu Tianping didn't come to the 9 mystical mountain with Qinghu? Why didn't his brothers come with him? Aren't they usually inseparable? Could it be that they have an ambush outside? An ambush? What a joke. Ambushing the 9 mystical towers cultivators in the 9 mystical towers territory? Hare, are you going to lend them your guts? I'll lend them. Chang Laosan, scram. 9th brother, 8th brother, 7th brother, the 3 of you go chase after Qinghu. Remember, if Lu Tianping comes to their rescue, the 3 of you just need to keep them busy. If you want to wash away the humiliation from before, today is your chance. The 2 Rights Tower Lord roared, "The rest of you stay where you are, just in case this is a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain." Chapter 1196. The Yin and Yang Tower Master's guess was indeed correct. Not long after the Green Fox retreated, a cultivator who was standing with the Yin and Yang Tower Master and the 3 Talents Tower Master suddenly grunted and said, "Second brother guessed correctly. Someone really did sneak in and activated the warning formation in the mountain." Third brother Chang looked at this person in surprise and sighed. Fifth brother's attainments in formations are becoming more and more astonishing. Second brother and I did not discover that someone sneaked in, but in the end, that person still could not escape from Lu Ping's formation detection. Fifth brother Chang shook his head and said, "That person's method of concealing his tracks is extremely brilliant. If it wasn't for the slight vibration of the ground when he walked and activating the formation, even I would not have known that this person had already sneaked in." The Yin and Yang Tower Master, who had been silent all this while, said, "This person must be Lu Tianping. Only this person could avoid our divine sense and sneak into Joshuan Mountain." The 5 Elements Tower Master said, "Should we surround him now?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master shook his head and said, "The 3 of us working together is enough to deal with him. It's just that this person's strength can defeat a great cultivator. Even if the 3 of us work together and defeat him, we won't be able to make him stay. Right now, we only need to follow his tracks." This time, The main goal is to figure out the location of the 5 elements hidden treasure. If we want to deal with Lu Tianping, we will have to wait until he comes out of the hidden treasure. Third brother Chang was startled and said, "This time, we are going to kill Lu Tianping?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master said, "For the thieving heaven hidden treasure, we can't care so much. You all know that when thieving heaven Laozu came out of Spirit Luan blessed land, he was heavily injured. After that, there was no news of him in the cultivation world. Our sect's seniors have long suspected that thieving heaven Laozu left behind a hidden treasure near Joshuan Tower. Thieving heaven Laozu most likely died there. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years, many of our sect's ancestors, Laozu, had explored the area around our sect more than once, and this 9 profound mountain was an important area, but they could not find the inheritance left behind by thieving heaven Laozu. Who would have thought that a few thieves would find it and sneak in?" Thinking about the number of treasures found in the thieving heaven hidden treasure, thieving heaven Laozu must have made some arrangements before his death. These thieves only obtained some superficial things. This time, the place where thieving heaven Laozu died will definitely have more treasures. This is also the reason why we are sure that they sneaked back again. The Yin and Yang Tower Master paused here and said, "With Lu Tianping's ability, as long as he enters the thieving heaven hidden treasure, his harvest will definitely surpass the Green Fox 9 bandits. But in order to find the entrance of the thieving heaven hidden treasure, we have no choice but to let him in, so we can only wait for him to come out and kill him. At that time, Boss Wei will also rush over, and fifth brother will also be able to set up a formation at the entrance. At that time, Joshuan Tower's direct lineage Yi Yuan Tower, Yin and Yang Tower, 3 Talents Tower, and 5 Elements Tower will work together, and with the help of the formation, if we still can't take care of Lu Tianping, then we really can't be direct lineage cultivators, it will be embarrassing." However, as soon as the Yin and Yang Tower Master finished speaking, 5 Elements Tower Master's expression became increasingly strange. Chang Sansai, who was at the side, quickly noticed 5 Elements Tower Master's expression and quickly asked, "Fifth brother, what's wrong?" 5 Elements Tower Master glanced at the two of them and said, "He's coming towards us." The Yin and Yang Tower Master was shocked. He stared at 5 Elements Tower Master and said, "How did he find out?" "Fifth brother, didn't you say that this formation to hide our tracks was comprehended in the Nether Space Lost formation, and even our sect's great cultivators can't find it?" 5 Elements Tower Master was obviously also stunned, but Chang Sansai, who was at the side, said, "Maybe he didn't find us." The Yin and Yang Tower Master and 5 Elements Tower Master were stunned, then Chang Sansai continued, "Why can't the entrance of the thieving heaven hidden treasure be on the hill where we are?" After sneaking into 9 Profound Mountain, Lu Ping traveled quickly, but he didn't use any flying techniques, he insisted on walking on the ground. He passed through several valleys, then he took a detour and headed towards the hill where the people of 9 Profound Mountain were at. Lu Ping was not proficient in formations, but he had a Dao companion who was proficient in formations. After being trapped in the Nether Space Lost formation for more than 20 years, he also obtained the 9 Debao Restrictions Formation Foundation from the Nether Space Lost formation, so Lu Ping's understanding of formations was not shallow. Right now, he even had the large success stage 3 Pure True Pupils ability. After refining the Lone Eagle's bloodline, the power of the 3 Pure True Pupils had become even stronger. Not long after entering the 9 Profound Mountain, he had already discovered the set of concealment formation set up on the hill. The formation that the 5 Elements Tower Master said was comprehended from the Nether Space Lost formation was a joke in Lu Ping's eyes. This concealment formation was simply an imitation of one of the formations in the 8th layer of the Nether Space Lost formation, and it was not a complete imitation. There were only some slight changes at the corners, making it look like it was the same, but it was actually not. Of course, the person who set up the formation was able to enter the 8th layer of the Nether Space Lost formation, at least it meant that this person's attainment in formations was above Deng Ming's, and he was an experienced formation master. If it was on a normal day, Lu Ping would naturally be cautious when he saw this person. However, since this formation was copied so well, Lu Ping, who already knew the answer, naturally would not be so polite. He went straight to the top of the hill, ready to meet the heirs of the 9 Profound Tower. On the top of the hill, Chang Sansai's words were greatly approved by the 2 Elements Tower Masters and the 5 Elements Tower Masters, especially the 5 Elements Tower Master, who was even more certain that Lu Ping definitely did not discover the formation at the top of the hill, and that the thieving heaven treasure was on this hill. The 2 Elements Tower Master nodded and said, "In that case, second brother, open the formation and let him move freely. We will retreat first, and when he finds the entrance to the treasure, we will come back and surround him." The 5 Elements Tower Master executed a few techniques, and under the astonished gaze of Lu Ping, the entire formation still existed, but it had lost the ability to obstruct people from entering the top of the hill. It only had the effect of concealing one's tracks. If not for Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils, he might not even know that there was a formation at the top of the hill. Lu Ping's divine sense moved, and he saw 3 extremely weak auras retreating from the other side of the hill. If not for Lu Ping's extraordinary divine sense, he might only see these 3 auras as wild beasts that roamed the mountains at night. The 9 profound towers' actions made Lu Ping a little confused, but he immediately thought of something, and his lips curled into a smile. He really walked around the top of the hill, and then, as if he had tripped, he staggered and kicked a stone under his feet into a depression on the stone wall. Just as the stone smashed into the depression, the whole stone wall suddenly flashed with a spiritual light, and then the stone fell from the stone wall and disappeared again. The 5 Elements Tower Master, who was watching from afar, suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, he has discovered us." Immediately after, he saw Lu Ping, who was at the top of the hill, look at the stone wall in shock. Then, as if he had realized something, there was a flash of light under his feet, and he quickly flew out of the 9 Shen mountain. Chang Sansai was puzzled. How could things be so coincidental? How could a Dharma adept like Lu Ping trip and accidentally kick a stone? Furthermore, the stone had hit one of the nodes of the formation, causing the originally invisible formation to suddenly reveal itself. How could so many coincidences happen at the same time? At this moment, the anxious voice of the 5 Elements Tower Master rang out, should we chase after him or not? If they did not chase after him, now that their tracks had been exposed, Lu Tianping would definitely not come after them. If they chased after him, not only would they not be able to catch up, even if they did, could the 3 of them work together to stop Lu Tianping? At least, Chang Sansai, who had seen Lu Ping's strength, did not think that they would be able to do so. As they spoke, Lu Ping's light had already disappeared into the sky, and the 3 of them could no longer track Lu Ping. How could he be so fast? The 2 Elements Tower Master sighed and said, "There is no need to chase after him. At least we have confirmed that the thieving heaven's inheritance is on this mountain. Even if we spend some effort, we will be able to find it." Outside the 9 Shen mountain, Zhu Jiuwan, the 7 Stars Tower Master, and the 8 Trigrams Tower Master stopped Green Fox. Zhu Jiuwan said fiercely, "Bitch, let's see where you can run this time." Green Fox looked at the 3 people surrounding her and said with a smile, "I did not say that I will run." Zhu Jiuwan was startled, then he saw a bright light under Green Fox's feet. Zhu Jiuwan immediately shouted, "Quickly, destroy the teleportation formation under her feet." However, the light disappeared in a flash, and there was no trace of Green Fox. Zhu Jiuwan and the other 2 rushed to where Green Fox was standing and saw that the teleportation runes on the simple teleportation formation that was covered by a thin layer of soil were gradually dissipating, leaving only the teleportation talisman at the center of the teleportation formation that was torn to quickly activate the formation. Teleportation arrays could be used for teleportation purposes, but the activation speed was slow. Teleportation arrays could be activated quickly, but the destination of teleportation was not precise enough. However, at this moment, the 2 were perfectly combined. This was a directional teleportation array. Where did Green Fox go? Somewhere in the 9 Shen mountain that Lu Ping had passed, Dabao, who had shrunk his body as much as possible but was still as fat as a meatball, crawled out from the ground. The reason why Lu Ping had chosen to sneak into the 9 Shen mountain was to cover for Dabao, who was using the earth evasion technique along the way. In the middle of the mountain, Dabao transformed back into his human form and chuckled. He tossed an item in his hand into the air. That item was none other than the secret key that Green Fox had used to enter the thieving heaven's inheritance, a small and exquisite axe-shaped magic tool. Dabao walked half a circle around the mountain and found the boulder that Green Fox had mentioned. He saw Lu Ping take out the axe-shaped magic tool and it immediately transformed into a majestic giant axe, then fiercely chopped at the boulder. Dang! The boulder was split in two, and the entire Nine Shen mountain sounded as if a huge gong had been smashed. Dabao put away the magic tool in his hand and jumped into the two halves of the boulder. He disappeared into it, and the two halves of the boulder instantly merged back together, becoming whole again. Chapter 1197. The shock from Dabao's strike was not small, but the sudden loud noise caught the 9 mystical towers cultivators off guard. The master of the yin and yang building and the others suddenly realized that they had fallen into another trap. Not only Qing Hu, but Lu Tianping was also just bait, luring them to focus all their attention on them. Unexpectedly, a third person had sneaked into Mount Joshuan. However, the crux of the matter was how this third person had snuck in. Why hadn't the 9 mystical towers measures detected his presence? Not far away, Zhu Jiuwan and the others had also rushed over to meet up with the master of the yin and yang building and the others. They had returned after being shaken off by Qing Hu. What should we do? Everyone looked at the master of the yin and yang building. At this moment, the master of the yin and yang building's expression was frighteningly gloomy. Previously, he had thought that everything was under his control, but now he suddenly realized that he had been tricked by Lu Tianping. The heirs did not say anything. Only Zhu Jiuwan had a gloating expression on her face. Let's search. What else can we do now? Circle up all the suspicious places in Mount Joshuan and surround them as soon as possible when they come out. Chang Sansai saw that the master of the yin and yang building was not in his right mind, so he said this. Chang Sansai's words brought the master of the yin and yang building back to his senses. He continued, "No one is allowed to act alone. Once you discover anything strange, you must immediately entangle the intruder. The others will then go and provide support." Zhu Jiuwan casually looked at her hands and said, "Mount Joshuan is so big. How can we search all the way here with just the few of us? I don't think there's any need to keep up appearances. Let's go back to the sect and ask for help. Call a few of the second-generation cultivators and surround Mount Joshuan so tightly that not even a drop of water can trickle through. I don't believe that he can fly into the sky. What a joke. Is one Lu Tianping worth alarming the entire 9 mystical tower?" A voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears, and almost everyone's spirit was shaken. Even Chang Sansai, who had always been sloppy, pulled out the grass stalk in his mouth, and Zhu Jiuwan's sarcastic young mistemper also disappeared. "Boss Wei, you're finally here." A pale-faced, young-looking cultivator suddenly appeared in front of the other cultivators of the 9 Profound Tower like a ghost. The important people of the 9 Profound Tower seemed to be familiar with the characteristics of this cultivator, so they didn't seem too surprised. Instead, they were extremely respectful. Even Zhu Jiuwan put away all the emotions on her face. This pale young man was the #1 direct disciple of the 9 Profound House, Hall Lord Yuan. Because his surname was Wei, he was addressed as Boss Wei. Of course, cultivators from other sects called him Wei Yuan. Since Lu Tianping has created a diversion and sent someone else into the thieving heaven treasure trove after drawing all of you away, once that person comes out, Qing Hu and Lu Tianping will definitely be waiting outside the 9 mysterious mountain to receive them. This is our chance, our only chance. Wei Yuan looked at everyone calmly. However, no one, including the master of the 2 rights building, dared to look him in the eye. Seeing that no one objected, Wei Yuan nodded slightly and said, "In that case, it's decided." After Dabao jumped into the boulder, he felt his body sink first, then something tightened under his feet. With a dong sound, Dabao felt his vision brighten. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a man-made tunnel that was as tall as a person. Dabao looked around and said, "It really is our spirit-seeking mouse. No, it is the work of the treasure-seeking mouse clan. The thieving heaven ancestor is really powerful." With that, Dabao's fat palm pressed against the stone wall. An earthen yellow vital energy entered the stone wall, and a formation restriction rune appeared on the stone wall. This formation restriction was obviously for the outside and not the inside. Therefore, even a person like Debao, who did not have much knowledge about formations, could easily find one or two nodes on the formation. At the instant the node lit up, a crystalline stone the size of a finger appeared in Dabao's hand. He then pressed the small stone into one of the nodes that had lit up. Then, under Dabao's astonished gaze, these lit-up runes were like tadpoles that had come to life and began to slowly move on the stone wall. For some reason, the movement of these spirit runes did not affect the operation of the formation restriction. When these runes moved and formed a new formation, Dabao immediately said with joy, "It's done. This space underworld essence is really extraordinary. It can actually form a simple teleportation formation so easily." As soon as he said that, the newly formed teleportation formation shone brightly. In the blink of an eye, the light faded, and Lu Ping had already arrived at the tunnel. This simple teleportation formation was formed by using the space underworld essence to reorganize the formation runes in the thieving heaven inheritance. But it was a simple teleportation formation after all, and could only teleport one person at a time. The teleportation formation flickered continuously. Samling, Green Phoenix, Tiger, Black Tortoise, Lu Daohua, and even Purple Crystal Bee King entered the thieving heaven inheritance. "How is it? Is this place the same as the last time you entered?" Everyone looked at Lu Ping's followers in surprise. Lu Ping asked Green Fox and the rest while plucking the space underworld essence from the stone wall. Even though Green Fox and the rest were curious about the stone in Lu Ping's hand, they still looked around. Green Fox said with joy, "That's right, this is the place. I did not expect to return so easily." Lu Ping nodded and said, "The entrance should have been mostly searched by you. Let's go to the furthest point and start from there." As soon as Lu Ping said that, Dabao called out from the side, "Don't, wait a minute." Lu Ping looked at Dabao and asked, "What is it?" Dabao smiled. "Why is it said that the treasures in the thieving heaven inheritance need to be searched tens to hundreds of times before finding something that has never been discovered before? Because no one can search all of the treasures hidden by thieving heaven Laozu in one go. Even though Green Fox and the rest have searched this tunnel, there are still many things left behind." Green Tiger was a bit unhappy and said, "Hey, then why don't you find some for us to see?" Bao let out a mischievous laugh. His large fat body unhurriedly spun around twice. A wave of earthen yellow smoke rose. After the smoke scattered, Bao had already returned to his original form. A wild boar-sized rat appeared in front of everyone. The giant rat took 2 steps forward. It was exactly where Qing Hu had been standing. The giant rat bustled about, and in the blink of an eye, a 2-foot-deep pit was created. Everyone then saw a palm-sized copper box lying at the bottom of the pit. Qing Hu snorted and didn't say anything else. The giant rat at the bottom of the pit had already thrown the copper box into Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping opened the copper box in front of everyone and smiled. "Good luck, a piece of lapis lazuli, a dual-attribute earth low-grade spirit item." Then he threw the copper box back to Dabao. Dabao's neck flashed and the copper box disappeared. Obviously, there was a storage artifact hanging on Dabao's neck. Dabao climbed out of the pit and started to backfill it. Green Tiger said, "It's just a pit, we need to hurry up, why are you backfilling it?" Bao said seriously, "This was left behind by Ancestor Thieving Heaven, it might even be the resting place of Ancestor Thieving Heaven after he died. Let's take the treasures inside and not disturb his rest." Green Tiger curled his lips, obviously disapproving, but in his opinion, there was no need to argue with a dead person. They walked along the tunnel for hundreds of feet. Along the way, they could clearly see many traces left by the Cyan Fox 9 bandits when they came in last time. Dabao tried his best to erase these traces and restore the original appearance of the secret treasure. At this moment, Big Bao, who had been leading the way, suddenly turned around to look at the wall beside him. Then, he let out a cry of surprise. When he arrived in front of the stone wall, a hammer and chisel had appeared in his hands. Then, he began to knock on the stone wall with clanging sounds. Green Tiger did not understand and said, "Isn't this just a stone wall? Other than being dug, everything else is naturally formed." Could it be that thieving heaven Laozu has the ability to hide things through the stone wall? Everyone looked at Dabao. Even Lu Ping did not know what was behind this stone wall. This treasure was protected by a formation, his divine sense could not detect anything, and his eyes obviously could not see through the stone wall. At this moment, with a crisp sound of Dabao knocking on the stone wall, a cloud of spiritual energy suddenly spurted out from the hole in the stone wall, and in the crystal light, a spirit stone appeared in front of everyone. Isn't it just a top-grade spirit stone? Don't make a fuss about it. But this rat demon's nose is really good, he can even find the spirit stone behind a stone wall more than a foot thick. Green Tiger did not know why he was a bit talkative at this time. Humph. A slightly childish voice rang out. Qinghu glared at the source of the voice, only to see Lu Xiaohai say coldly, "Don't forget that most of the rat demon clan inherited the bloodline of Taoist who, which is the same origin as you. The bloodline of the spirit-seeking rat is thin and can only be regarded as a low-level demon clan, but its bloodline has never changed." Green Tiger glared at him and said angrily, "Boy, who gave you the right to speak?" Lu Xiaohai looked at Green Tiger with contempt and said, "You only have a quarter of the multicolored tiger bloodline, how dare you be arrogant in front of me?" Chapter 1198. The Cyan Fox 9 bandits had roamed the world of cultivation for many years, and their hearts were proud and unyielding. Although they acknowledged Lu Ping as their master, they also had their own stubbornness. However, this stubbornness was exposed by Qinghu, who had a slightly irascible temperament. As a result, their stubbornness was met with a powerful counterattack from Lu Xiaohai. The Northern Ice Plains multicolored tiger clan was also a top-grade demon clan left behind by Taoist whose bloodline. It was one of the 3 largest tiger clans along with the Western Desolation white-fronted tiger clan and the Endless Mountain Range tiger clan. Most of the Cyan Fox 9 bandits were mixed-blood humans and demons. Qinghu had a quarter of the multicolored tiger clan's bloodline flowing through his veins. He didn't expect that someone would be able to see through him with just a glance. Moreover, this person seemed to be a demon cultivator who had just advanced to the late core forging stage. How could Qinghu not be afraid of this person? He shouted, "Who are you?" Although Lu Xiaohai was now a late core forging stage cultivator, he looked like a 13 or 14-year-old in human form. He was only slightly stronger than his peers. Hearing Qinghu's question, Lu Xiaohai opened his mouth and let out a loud roar. Lu Ping's followers weren't affected by the pressure, but the remaining 6 of the Cyan Fox 9 bandits all carried the monster race's bloodline. They could clearly feel the pressure from their bloodline. Qinghu looked behind Lu Xiaohai with surprise in his eyes. He saw that the spirit qi behind Lu Xiaohai was surging, and it gradually condensed into the shadow of a huge white tiger with hanging eyes. "The white-fronted tiger clan," Qinghu exclaimed. "You're actually from the white-fronted tiger clan." Lu Xiaohai snorted coldly and didn't say anything. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise was heard. It was Dabao who was laughing heartily at the side. When everyone looked over, they saw that Dabao had pried out the high-grade spirit stone from the wall. Lu Ping had been watching the confrontation with cold eyes. Only now did he open his mouth and ask, "Did you find something?" Dabao patted the stone wall and said, "Behind this stone wall is a spirit stone vein, a large spirit stone vein." "What?" Exclamations of shock rang out from the crowd. Qinghu exclaimed, "Impossible, the 9 Profound Mountain is so close to the 9 Profound Tower, it can be said to be the 9 Profound Tower's backyard. If there really is a large spirit stone vein here, how could the 9 Profound Tower not know about it?" Dabao snickered. "When did Treasure Master say that this mine doesn't belong to the 9 Profound Tower?" Qing Lang furrowed his brows and asked, "If it's the 9 Profound Tower's spirit stone mine, then it's even more unreasonable. Why didn't the 9 Profound Tower seal the spirit stone mine with the vein suppression spirit lock formation? Sealed, they are naturally sealed, but it doesn't look like the meridian suppression spirit lock great array." Treasure Lord was naturally beside himself with joy at this moment. No matter what, Ancestor Thieving Heaven had already secretly opened a gap in this formation. As long as he was willing, he could use the instincts of the spirit-seeking mouse clan to open this gap at any time. I'm afraid this is the inheritance that ancestor thieving heaven left behind for our spirit-seeking mouse clan. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years, no spirit-seeking mouse clan's younger generation was able to inherit any of his inheritance. Thieving heaven Laozu had left an ingenious hole in the formation of the Nine Profound Towers spirit stone mine, making it so that the Nine Profound Tower had not discovered it in the last 10,000 years. And this hole was not a hole, in fact, it was opened by the instinct of the spirit-seeking mice. Lu Ping quickly asked, "Can this spirit stone mine be closed after it is opened?" Debao said, "Of course it can be closed. Our mouse demon race is good at running small streams over a long period of time. We will not do something like killing the goose that lays the golden eggs to catch the fish." Lu Ping nodded, "That's good, let's go find the other treasures first, this spirit vein will come last." Everyone agreed. Stealing the spirit stone mine was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. Moreover, the mine itself could not be left, so it was the same when they excavated it. At this time, it was more important to find the thieving heaven divine axe and thieving heaven pill. Debao placed the chiseled stones back into the wall one by one, and the broken stones reformed into a complete stone wall. The group moved forward for another 100 feet, and along the way, they could still see the traces left behind by Qing Hu and the rest when they entered the inheritance, and Debao also found more than 10 things in this distance. Although none of them were precious, the most precious were only 2 ordinary strange items. There was no lack of a mid-grade spirit stone, a low-grade magic tool, and other things that were dispensable in the eyes of the group. However, everyone could see that every item that Debao found had been carefully hidden by someone, clearly the work of Laozu the thieving heaven. As a Dharma adept, why would he spend so much energy on these insignificant things? No one could figure out what this ancestor was thinking. Only Da Bao was happily looking around for them. "It's here. Last time, we were ultimately stopped here." Qing Hu looked at the barrier in front of the tunnel entrance, and turned to speak to Lu Ping. The light blue barrier was like an upright sea level, and Lu Ping's eyes flashed with green light, but he asked, "What method did you use to enter last time?" Azure Fox said, "Ninth sister had some understanding of formations, and she was only a hair's breadth away from becoming a formation master. However, she was powerless against this barrier. It's a pity that Ninth sister was severely injured when she tried to forcibly break through the formation. Otherwise, she wouldn't have died." Forcibly broke the formation, no wonder. Lu Ping smiled bitterly. Thieving heaven ancestor created such a divine temple space in the inheritance, and the reason why it could be hidden in the Nine Shen Mountain is because this space is attached to the Nine Shen Mountain's sect-guarding array. When you two tried to break the array by force, you actually faced the backlash of the entire Nine Shen Mountain's sect-guarding array. You were lucky to only be injured and not killed. At this moment, Lu Ping finally understood the mysteries of the thieving heaven's treasure. The treasure was attached to the Nine Shen Mountains array formation and created this space. No wonder the Nine Shen Tower didn't discover it. No wonder the large spirit stone mine discovered by Debao wasn't protected by the vein suppression spirit lock array formation. The spirit stone mine was directly within the range of the Nine Shen Mountains array formation, so there was no need for the array formation to protect it. Qing Hu naturally knew what the sect protection formation meant, but to be able to find a loophole in the sect protection formation, how powerful was this thieving heaven Laozu? Hearing this, Qing Hu immediately shouted, "What? The sect protection formation of the sacred land? Then let's quickly retreat. No one will be able to break this barrier." Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "Although this barrier is an array formation drawn from one of the sect-guarding arrays, it can only be considered as borrowing it. It's far from the 9 mystical pavilions sect-guarding array formation." As soon as Lu Ping's voice faded, he opened his hands and 2 charms appeared on his palms. Rays of 5-colored light burst out from the charms. Then, Lu Ping placed his palms on the blue barrier and the 5-colored light shone brightly. The 7th Qing Q of the Qing Hu 9 bandits looked at the 5-colored light in Lu Ping's hands and exclaimed, "Ah, 5-colored restriction breaking talisman." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that the wave-like blue shield in front of him was corroded by the 5-colored light, leaving 2 huge holes. Furthermore, the holes were constantly expanding. In the end, The blue shield completely turned into spiritual energy and dissipated in the air. It's broken. Dabao excitedly ran towards the stone room behind the barrier, but before he could take 2 steps, he abruptly stopped. Then with a plop, he knelt on the ground, his head abruptly smashing into the ground. Lu Ping and the others also walked into the stone room, and when they saw Dabao's sudden action, they thought they had fallen into an ambush and stopped in their tracks. Lu Ping raised his head to look at where Dabao knelt, and saw a huge rat corpse that was 3 meters long in a corner of the stone room. This huge rat corpse only had a skeleton and a piece of rat skin left, and the abdomen of the corpse was clearly caved in, showing that it had suffered a heavy injury. Under the left front claw of the huge rat was a crescent-shaped axe that was 2 feet long, and the blade was half a foot long. Seeing that Dabao knelt on the ground without saying anything, Lu Ping asked softly, "Is this the remains of Laozu the thieving god?" Dabao nodded, "There's no mistake, it's the bloodline of the spirit-seeking mice." Then, Dabao pointed at the axe that was pressed by the huge rat corpse, and said, "That's almost the thieving god's axe." Qinghu and the others all looked at this famous spiritual treasure in the cultivation world, but Lu Ping only glanced at it, and then looked around the stone room. Seeing that Lu Ping did not pay attention to the axe, Qinghu walked up and wanted to take the spiritual treasure in her hand, but Lu Ping suddenly said, "Do you know that spiritual treasures have spirits?" Qinghu was stunned, and she took 2 steps back. Then, she heard Lu Ping's voice, "Come out, how long can you hide?" As soon as Lu Ping's voice fell, the axe that was pressed under the huge rat corpse suddenly broke free from the huge rat's claw, and a series of runes flashed on the surface of the axe. The axe flew up on its own, and then chopped in the direction of Lu Ping, and a blade light appeared in front of Lu Ping. Qinghu and the others were shocked. When the axe flew up on its own, they could see that it was indeed a first tribulation spiritual treasure, but the power of the axe was beyond their expectations. However, Lu Ping seemed to be prepared for this. Just before the axe chopped at him, he had already used the thin flowing water sword. When the blade light was about to touch him, the 2 sword lights from the flying revolving chain slash arrived one after the other, and neutralized the blade light. The power of the thin flowing water sword when combined could even compete with a second tribulation spiritual treasure, but this time, it did not gain the upper hand when it collided with the axe, which was also a first tribulation spiritual treasure. It should be known that the giant axe was not controlled by anyone, nor was it supported by spiritual ether. Under such circumstances, it was still able to withstand Lu Ping's great divine swordsmanship, which meant that the quality of the axe was better. Chapter 1199. Since there was no one controlling the axe, the body that was suspended in the air seemed to be swaying after the blow. Lu Ping looked at it and smiled, still not coming out. "Why? Do you still want to use the last blow to prepare for another attack?" Everyone seemed to be a little puzzled. Only Qing who seemed to have realized something, but she did not find the expected hidden object with her divine sense. Then she heard Lu Ping said, "You have seen the effect of the blow just now. Now you should still have the power to make another attack. What else do you think you can do?" At this time, everyone had already followed Lu Ping's gaze to the giant rat corpse lying on the ground. They were shocked. Could it be that thieving heaven Laozu was still alive? Or did he leave some tricks behind? Otherwise, how could he still control the axe to attack them? Just as everyone was thinking about it, they heard a sneaky voice suddenly sounded from the giant rat corpse. "Who are you? Why did you come to the old man's cave mansion?" The image of a short, shriveled, long-bearded, shifty-eyed old man immediately appeared in everyone's consciousness. Could it be that this person was really thieving heaven Laozu? It had been so many years, yet he was still alive. Lu Ping smiled and said, "You really know how to play tricks." As expected of thieving heaven Laozu's spiritual treasure. After saying that, Lu Ping stretched out his hand towards the direction of the giant rat. The axe that had fallen to the ground again rose into the air, but this time, it flew towards Lu Ping's hand. Suddenly, an invisible force rose from the back of the axe and pulled the axe flying towards Lu Ping from the opposite direction. Suddenly, the axe was fixed in the air again. Lu Ping smiled slightly. He stretched out his palm and hooked his 4 fingers back. The axe slowly pulled towards Lu Ping again. Obviously, the strange force was not a match for Lu Ping at all. However, at this time, the voice that sounded from the giant rat corpse suddenly let out a smug sneer. Then, the surface of the axe suddenly lit up with a light that was more devastating than before. The force pulling the axe in the opposite direction suddenly disappeared, and the axe suddenly chopped towards Lu Ping at a speed faster than before. In an instant, the axe arrived before Lu Ping. However, the scene of Lu Ping panicking and closing his eyes to wait for death did not appear. Instead, a smile appeared on Lu Ping's face. He only had time to say one sentence: after nearly 10,000 years, you can still maintain your spirituality to this extent. Not bad. Then, 9 layers of light burst out from Lu Ping's palm. Each ray of light formed a large hand of spiritual energy that wrapped around the hand of spiritual energy in front of it. Then, the large hand of spiritual energy moved towards the axe that was coming towards him. However, each of the large hands of spiritual energy that clenched onto the axe was cut through layer by layer. Then, the bright light on the axe was constantly being worn away. After the 9th layer of the golden meteorite astral shield was cut through, the light on the axe had mostly dissipated. Next, it was time to face Lu Ping's body. The strange laughter rang out once more. Although the power of the axe had been reduced by more than half, it was still not something that a cultivator's body could block. However, Lu Ping just happened to block it. The index finger and thumb of his right hand happened to pass through the light and accurately pinched the axe's body. The axe could not move even half an inch forward in mid-air. The strange laughter stopped abruptly as if it was pinched by the neck. Not only that, but the people around Lu Ping were also stunned for a moment. Even if the power of the axe had mostly dissipated, it was still not something that a cultivator could block with their body. However, Lu Ping used his body to block the attack and forcibly grabbed the spiritual treasure in his hand. Just how strong was Lu Ping's body? In the end, a long and thin bloody mark was left on the web between Lu Ping's thumb and forefinger. Drops of blood seeped out, and then a blue light flashed. After refining the Wonder Dew, Lu Ping's essential energy contained a powerful life force. It had a unique advantage when it came to healing injuries. For example, small wounds like these usually healed very quickly. Still not coming out. Lu Ping held the axe in his left hand. Then, he stretched out his right hand and pointed it in the direction of the mummy. Don't, I surrender, I surrender. A black light flew out of the mummy's mouth and quickly hid behind Dabao. It turned into a humanoid shadow. It really was a shriveled old man. He timidly peeked out from behind Dabao and looked at Lu Ping. Qing, who hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Are you the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing axe?" Among everyone present, the little old man seemed to feel a sense of familiarity from Dabao's aura. In the face of Qing, whose question, the little old man did not say a word. He just hid behind Dabao and did not dare to come out. However, his eyes would occasionally look at Lu Ping, who was not far away and no longer paying attention to him. Among everyone present, only Lu Ping made him feel a deep sense of fear. Otherwise, he would not have concentrated his only 2 attacks on Lu Ping. Hey, old man, I'm asking you a question. Why are you always hiding behind Treasure Master? Dabao turned around several times, but the old man's ability was much greater than his. No matter how he turned, the old man was always able to hide behind him. After a long time, Dabao felt an eerie feeling at the back of his neck, which made his hair stand on end. The old man's strange voice sounded behind Dabao. "What is the relationship between you and that dead mouse lying on the ground? I can feel that your auras are too similar." Dabao protested, "That is our spirit-seeking mouse clan's old senior, Laozu the Thieving Heaven, he is." "Hey, that's not right. Hey, aren't you the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing axe? Shouldn't you know more about him than me?" The old man's eyes were suddenly at a loss. Although his figure was extremely illusory, Dabao's question just now had clearly puzzled him. He forcefully pulled his beard and said, "What do I know? What is the heaven-stealing axe that you are talking about? Is it the axe that was snatched by that person? If that is the case, then the old man is indeed the weapon spirit of that axe, but I don't know about that big mouse." But his corpse is very comfortable inside. I have always been inside all these years. Debao asked again, all these years? How long has it been? How long? The old man was confused again. A very long time. I have always been here. I can't remember clearly. At this time, Lu Ping's voice suddenly sounded again. Oh, so that's how it is. Once Lu Ping's voice sounded, the old man was immediately frightened and hid behind Debao, not even daring to show his head. Debao asked Lu Ping, "Boss, what's wrong?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "You have been following me around all these years and have seen a lot of rare treasures. How can you not know that without the nourishment of primeval essence, a weapon spirit's spirituality will dissipate and even return to being a spirit-nurturing treasure? Even if the weapon spirit's body doesn't dissipate, the weapon spirit's memory will slowly dissipate. The heaven-stealing divine axe behind you was able to persist for 10,000 years without dissipating. It is already very rare. Do you think it can remember anything?" Debao said, "But the power of this guy's 2 attacks just now was not small. There is no trace of spirituality dissipating at all." Lu Ping said, "This is also what I was puzzled about just now. Now it seems that all the mysteries are under this thieving heaven Laozu's corpse and the heaven-stealing divine axe's spirituality. Although this heaven-stealing divine axe was only a first tribulation spirit treasure, its quality was obviously among the best among the first tribulation spirit treasures. It even had some of the characteristics of a second tribulation spirit treasure. Out of the weapon spirit's instinct, it could even absorb and refine a part of the spiritual energy and store it in the spirit treasure itself. This was the fundamental reason why the heaven-stealing divine axe could achieve 2 attacks before. It was just that the spiritual energy absorbed and stored by the body was not refined by the cultivator's primeval essence, so it had no use for the spirit treasure's weapon spirit. Therefore, this weapon spirit looked so weak that only a thin shadow was left, and it could collapse at any time. And thieving heaven Laozu's method was even more brilliant. He clearly drew out a branch vein from the 9 mystical towers' spirit vein to suppress this stone room. Originally, it might have been to recuperate in this stone room, but when Lu Ping looked at the collapsed abdomen of the giant rat's corpse, he clearly did not wait for thieving heaven Laozu to heal and died because of his heavy injuries. On the other hand, due to its instinct to protect itself, the artifact spirit of the heaven-stealing divine axe hid itself in the corpse of the giant rat, which was why it could barely keep its spiritual body from dissipating after nearly 10,000 years. However, its memories and the like had all disappeared, leaving only its instinct to protect itself. Debao did not give up and asked the old man behind him, "Heaven-stealing divine axe, thieving heaven Laozu, spirit-seeking rat, treasure-seeking rat, you don't remember any of them?" The old man shook his head and said, "They all sound familiar, but I can't remember anything." Lu Ping shook his head and said, "Don't talk nonsense. I'm sure you know your current situation better than anyone else. If you don't want to dissipate, quickly find someone to recognize as your master. With the nourishment of primeval essence, you can slowly recover your spirituality." The old man was extremely afraid of Lu Ping and did not dare to object to any of Lu Ping's orders, but he still asked timidly, "Then I'll recognize this little fatty as my master? This little fatty is so nice and kind." Debao immediately beamed with joy, but Qing, who beside him, was not the slightest bit annoyed. Lu Ping laughed coldly and said, "He only has a little bit of cultivation. Even if you break open his bone marrow and suck him dry, he won't be able to satisfy your needs. Don't even think about it before he enters the Dharma stage." The old man's eyes darted around 7 or 8 times, and he said, Then can I follow you?" Lu Ping glared at him and pointed at Qing, who, saying, "I don't need her. Stop talking nonsense and just follow her." The old man was slightly disappointed, but seeing that Qing, who seemed to be the most powerful person among them besides Lu Ping, and hearing from Lu Ping's tone, it seemed that the little fatty in front of him would still follow Debao after he grew up, the old man could only nod. Then, the old man turned into a streak of black light and flew toward the heaven-stealing divine axe in Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping threw the axe in his hand, and the black light disappeared into it, then flew into Qing, whose hand. Qing, who suddenly spat out a stream of pure primeval essence into the axe in her hand, and the heaven-stealing divine axe immediately shone with a black light. Chapter 1200. Seeing that the thieving divine axe was gradually being refined by Qinghu, Lu Ping slowly walked forward and bowed to the giant rat's corpse, then turned to the others and said, "This stone room may be connected to other stone rooms and secret pavilions. Everyone, split up and search, see if you find any pill recipes, spirit pills, or spirit herbs, please hand them over to me." Lu Ping's words were, in fact, a way to tell the crowd that whatever was found would belong to the person who found it. Naturally, the crowd was delighted. However, when they saw Lu Ping bowing to the giant rat's carcass, they also searched carefully and didn't destroy anything in the stone chamber. After all, Lu Ping was an extremely famous alchemy grandmaster, so Qinghu and the others naturally knew about him. They also understood that Lu Ping's main goal in entering the Thieving Heaven's inheritance was to obtain the various Thieving Heaven pills refined by Laozu. This stone chamber was extremely spacious. It was more than 10 zhong long and several zhong wide. There were many stone cabinets, stone cupboards, and stone shelves around the stone walls. Everyone rummaged through them, and from time to time, they would make a pleasant discovery. Only Qinghu did not search for treasures with the others. After refining the thieving divine axe, Qinghu was still nourishing it with true yuan. Although the weapon spirit of the thieving divine axe had been nourished by the spirit vein in the stone room for close to 10,000 years, its spirituality was still severely damaged. If not for everyone's discovery, the weapon spirit would probably disappear in a few decades. This was also the reason why the weapon spirit so easily followed Lu Ping's instructions and chose a new master after being defeated by Lu Ping. Qinghu naturally knew that if she wanted to dig deeper into the thieving divine axe's potential and make it more compatible with her, this was the most crucial moment, and Qinghu naturally would not let go of this opportunity. Moreover, the most precious item in the treasure trove was already in her hands. She had her own discerning eyes, so she wouldn't search for other treasures in the treasure trove with the others. Lu Ping turned to De Bao and said, "What do you plan to do with the giant rat's corpse?" De Bao said, "This is indeed the thieving heaven Laozu. No ordinary rat demon would have such a huge body. Only the thieving heaven Laozu who had advanced to the Dharma stage could do so. Although the Joshuan Tower did not discover his death here, once we leave the thieving heaven's inheritance, that may not be the case, so I plan to take the corpse with me." Lu Ping nodded and saw De Bao step forward with a storage instrument in his hand. A yellow light enveloped the giant rat's corpse, and when the light faded, the corpse had already been stored in De Bao's storage instrument. After the giant rat's carcass disappeared, Lu Ping saw that there was a secret chamber behind the carcass. It was just that no one noticed it because it was blocked by the giant rat's carcass, not even their divine senses. Lu Ping used his divine sense to explore the entrance of the secret room, and found that this time, his divine sense had successfully entered the secret room through the hole. Not only that, the thick spiritual qi in the stone room was also leaking out from this secret room, and the branch vein that the thieving heaven Laozu had drawn from the Joshuan Mountain spirit vein was in that secret room. Lu Ping turned to De Bao and said, "After we return, before we bury the thieving heaven Laozu's corpse, see if there are any treasures hidden in it." De Bao and Lu Ping had been partners for a long time, so he naturally knew what Lu Ping meant, so he nodded and said, "Don't worry." Although the stone room was huge, the secret room was extremely small, especially the entrance to the secret room, which was not high. Otherwise, it would not have been blocked by the corpse of the giant rat. Da Bao could be considered short and fat, but he still had to lower his head slightly to pass through the entrance of the secret room. However, the height of the door was about the same as that of the shriveled old man who had been the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing divine axe. The two entered the secret room one after another, and the first thing they saw was a 5 feet tall pitch-black pill furnace standing in the center of the secret room. Lu Ping and De Bao looked at each other, and they could see the excitement in each other's eyes, because both of them could see that the pill furnace in front of them was a magic treasure pill furnace that was fused with a treasure restriction. There were 2 big words engraved on the black and shiny furnace wall, "Thieving Heaven." This was the most direct connection to thieving heaven Laozu that Lu Ping and the others saw after entering this treasure trove. Previously, everyone had almost confirmed that this treasure trove was left by thieving heaven Laozu, and there was also the giant rat corpse and the axe spirit treasure lying in the stone room. But after all, the cultivation level of the rat corpse could not be seen, and the spirit treasure spirit had long lost its memory inheritance, so there was no evidence that could directly prove that this treasure trove was left by thieving heaven Laozu. But now that this magic treasure pill furnace was engraved with the words thieving heaven, it made Lu Ping very clear that this treasure trove was indeed left by thieving heaven Laozu. Lu Ping walked forward and slapped the wall of the pill furnace, and the lid flew up. Dabao jumped on the edge of the pill furnace, looked inside the pill furnace, then sniffed and said, "There were pills inside, but after such a long time, they have already become useless pills." The moment the lid flew up, Lu Ping had already judged from the smell that the pills inside were already useless, but Lu Ping still carefully took out the 3 loose pills and 2 small piles of pill ashes, and put them into 5 jade bottles. From the reputation of thieving heaven pill, this thieving heaven Laozu was definitely a top alchemy grandmaster. Whether these 5 useless pills were thieving heaven pills or not, it was worth Lu Ping to carefully investigate them. If they were really thieving heaven pills, Lu Ping could at least find some of the spirit herbs needed for the pill recipe from these useless pills. At this time, Dabao was already lying at the bottom of the cauldron. There was a spirit gathering formation below, which should be used to nourish the spirit fire for pill refinement. However, the spirit stones embedded in the spirit gathering formation plate had already turned into ashes, and the center of the spirit gathering formation, which was originally used to ignite the spirit fire, was also empty. Dabao sniffed at the center of the spirit gathering formation and sighed, "Boss, it's a pity. The spirit fire ignited in this spirit gathering formation is at least heaven rank. It's a pity that the spirit energy has dissipated and the spirituality is lost. This spirit fire is also useless." Lu Ping looked at the traces of the spirit fire in the center of the spirit gathering formation and nodded. "It is indeed a pity. This is a heaven rank middle grade flying duck dazzling fire. Although its effect in pill refinement is not as good as the silver dew spirit fire, it is still a famous spirit fire in the cultivation world." When Dabao heard this, he felt even more distressed. Lu Ping smiled and said, "To be able to find a magic treasure cauldron is already a heaven rank pill furnace. Don't be greedy, don't push your luck." Dabao looked around the secret room and saw that there were stone shelves on 3 sides of the secret room. On the shelves, there were jade bottles of pills, jade boxes used to store spirit herbs, and dozens of different kinds of jade slips. Dabao had already excitedly rushed towards the stone shelves, while Lu Ping walked towards the stone shelves containing the jade slips. Dabao shouted, "Boss, don't you want to take a look at these spirit pills and spirit herbs? Maybe inside are the stealing heaven pill and the spirit herbs used to refine the stealing heaven pill." Lu Ping smiled and said, "After nearly 10,000 years, even if there is a spirit sealing talisman on the jade bottle, the medicinal properties of the pills inside have already lost and become useless pills. As for the jade boxes containing spirit herbs, I'm afraid it's the same, don't look at them." Unexpectedly, when Lu Ping said this and picked up a jade slip, the jade slip also broke into several pieces. Lu Ping was slightly surprised and picked up another jade slip. This jade slip was not broken, but the contents sealed inside had already disappeared without a trace. Dabao's laughter came from the side and said, "Boss, it seems that you didn't find anything there." Lu Ping pointed fiercely at Dabao, then smiled helplessly. The passage of time was the most terrifying. Even the jade slips sealed with all kinds of inheritance contents had broken. Lu Ping told Dabao, "Whether there are usable spirit pills or spirit herbs in those jade bottles and jade boxes, take them away. If there is time in the future, this thieving heaven Laozu's attainments in pill refinement must be studied." With that said, Lu Ping's hand tightened. After more than 10 jade slips either broke or the contents sealed inside were annihilated, he finally found an intact jade slip. Lu Ping was overjoyed, and his divine sense immediately penetrated into the jade slip, but then the joy on his face froze. This was actually a blank jade slip. Lu Ping was annoyed, and he was about to throw this jade slip away, but after his fingers pinched the surface of the jade slip, he was slightly stunned, then he raised the jade slip in his hand in front of his eyes. Green light flowed in his eyes, and his pupils even had a slight golden red color. Dabao was surprised when he saw Lu Ping holding a jade slip in front of his eyes. Jade slips were usually imprinted with divine sense, and after being sealed, the cultivator could check the contents inside. It was the most intuitive and convenient method, but it was a bit strange for Lu Ping to look at a jade slip in front of his eyes. "Boss, what's going on?" Lu Ping's face also gradually showed a hint of surprise. Hearing Dabao's question, he said, "This thieving heaven Laozu is very unique. The content of a pill recipe is not engraved in the jade slip with divine sense, but carved on the jade slip with the method of carving in the mortal world. But this carving is obviously much more subtle than the carving of mortals. If I didn't notice it when I touched it just now, even I would have missed it." Dabao smiled and said, "Seeing boss is so excited, the content carved on this jade slip must be extraordinary." Lu Ping nodded and sighed. Thieving heaven old ancestor is truly a knowledgeable person. There are many different kinds of thieving heaven pellets in the cultivation world, but this one is probably the only one that can truly be considered as the thieving heaven. No, it's not just thieving heaven, it's heaven defying." Dabao suddenly became spirited, and hurriedly asked, "What is recorded on it?" Lu Ping threw the jade slip into Dabao's hands and said, "Calamity Thunder Pill. Thieving heaven Laozu called this pill the Calamity Thunder Pill. You can look at the specific content yourself, as long as you use your eyesight a little, you will be able to see it." Calamity Thunder Pill? Dabao looked at the jade slip suspiciously, just like how Lu Ping did, and after a while, he exclaimed, This is impossible." Lu Ping smiled. "Why is it impossible? Otherwise, how could thieving heaven Laozu pass the first thunder trial and advance to the middle Dharma stage?" Chapter 1201. The Thunder Calamity Pill, as the name suggested, was a pill that could withstand the thunder calamity. However, this kind of heaven-defying pill could only be used to withstand one thunder calamity, and it could only withstand the 9th thunder calamity in the first thunder calamity. The others were useless. In other words, to use the thunder calamity pill, not only could it only be used when a cultivator entered the mid-Dharma stage for the first thunder calamity, but it could only be used after the first 8th thunder calamity. I really didn't expect the thieving heaven ancestor to be able to refine such a magical pill. It's not that he could refine such a pill, but I didn't expect him to have obtained a relic from the creation of the heavens. A relic from the creation of the heavens? Da Bao exclaimed, turning the jade slip in his hand over and over again. He asked doubtfully, "That's it? This is a relic from the creation of the heavens?" Lu Ping took the jade slip from Dabao's hand, weighed it in his hand, and said, "Maybe it can't be considered a relic from the creation of the heavens. It's just that when the 7th patriarch opened the heavens, there were no jade slips passed down in the world of cultivation. The things used to record were just paper, jade tablets, or bamboo slips, and the recorded content was engraved on them. In order to make these things carry more content, the cultivators often used extremely fine characters." Dabao said, "Yes, this can only prove that this jade tablet may be an item passed down from that time, but it can't be said to be a relic from the creation of the heavens, right? However, the quality of this jade slip is undeniable. The other jade slips have been turned to dust after nearly 10,000 years, but this jade slip is undamaged. This shows that it is extraordinary. Even if it is not a relic from the creation of the heavens, it is probably left behind by a powerful cultivator from the creation of the heavens." Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "There's no need to rush to a conclusion. You have to take a look at the contents of this jade. Although the method to concoct the tribulation thunder pellet is recorded in it, it's full of speculation and speculation. However, the last paragraph is very certain. It says that the tribulation thunder pellet can be used to block the 9th lightning strike of the first lightning tribulation, but it has no effect on the 2nd, 3rd lightning tribulation, or even the 7th lightning strike of a certain lightning tribulation. This kind of certainty is completely different from the uncertainty and extreme hesitation in the introduction of the alchemy process." Dabao said, "Boss, you mean these 2 paragraphs were not left behind by one person?" Lu Ping laughed and scolded, "Nonsense, can't you see that the font of the 2 paragraphs are different? Obviously, the first person recorded this guess, and the second person finally refined this kind of pill and tested its effect. However, there are still some things hidden in it. Your cultivation is not enough, so I'm afraid you can't see them." Lu Ping extended the jade slip to Dabao again, but this time he did not hand it to him. Instead, a dense stream of spiritual essence surged in Lu Ping's hand, almost dyeing this warm white jade blue. Immediately after, a hidden sentence appeared in the upper left corner of this white jade: Turtle Dao, ancestor of the South Sea, sit and listen. Dabao was stunned. This was recorded by Taoist Gui's followers. Taoist Gui is the originator of alchemy in the world of cultivation. If this guess about the Tribulation Thunder Pill was written by Taoist Gui, and then meticulously recorded on jade slips by his followers, then it makes sense. Lu Ping nodded and said, it should be so. It is said that Taoist Gui is fond of sleeping, and no one knows when he will come. In order to make it convenient for his followers to listen to his teachings when he wakes up, they almost always carry this kind of jade slip with them. Thus, when Taoist Gui, who is fond of sleeping, suddenly wakes up, he will only be awake for a day or two, or even an hour or two before falling asleep again. Therefore, his followers will try their best to record his lectures every time he temporarily wakes up, and then comprehend them later. Because most of the time, Taoist Gui will not repeatedly explain during his lectures, so these followers will not have the time to comprehend on the spot. Dabao sighed. This kind of heaven-defying panacea is only a record of Taoist Gui's guess. I didn't expect it to actually work. The seventh patriarch of Heaven Splitter is really unfathomable and awe-inspiring. But, Dabao then asked doubtfully, boss, how do you know so much? Lu Ping chuckled, I was once instructed by a pure young Laozu, so I know a little more. Dabao immediately exclaimed, what? Boss, you were instructed by pure young Laozu? But how could I not know? Usually, Dabao is always by boss's side, but he has never noticed that you were instructed by pure young Laozu. Lu Ping smiled but did not say anything. He turned around and began to read the other jade slips. On the side, Dabao was still a little unwilling to give up. He said, boss, are we not going to refine such a heaven-defying panacea? This panacea is indeed amazing, but it's just a chicken rib. Bao shouted, how can this be of little value? It can block a bolt of tribulation lightning. Have you seen the consequences of taking the Thunder Calamity Panacea? Although your level of practice has reached the mid-Dharma stage, your lifespan will only increase by half. Not only that, but this kind of heaven-defying method also comes with a high price. The 9th lightning strike is the most important for the Dharma stage. Without the 9th lightning strike, the practitioner's ability will be lower than that of the same level practitioners, but the key is that they will not have a chance to improve further in the future. This Thunder Calamity Panacea is actually a one-off deal. Dabao was still unwilling to give up. He said, I think this panacea is still useful, especially for those practitioners who are not very confident of surviving the lightning strikes. Lu Ping said, rather than risking your life to overcome the first 8 lightning bolts, it's better to give it a shot on the 9th lightning bolt. At the very least, you'll have a chance to improve after you succeed. Or, you can make more preparations after you overcome the lightning tribulation and strengthen your foundation. It's better than failing at the last moment. Dabao cried out, boss, do you think everyone is like you, hugging a treasure and summoning lightning strikes together to survive? There are thousands of practitioners in the world of practice, but how many of them can reach the mid-Dharma stage? How many practitioners reach the early Dharma stage as their limit? How many early Dharma adepts who summon their first lightning strike eventually fall at the 9th lightning strike? If there is a panacea that avoids the 9th lightning strike and a practitioner who is on the verge of death after surviving the first 8 lightning strikes, why would they care about their lifespan and the slowing down of their growth? Their priority would be to survive. Lu Ping thought about it and felt that what Zhu Donghuang said made sense. As he continued to search for a jade scroll that was still intact, he sighed and said, what you said makes sense, but can't you take a good look at the contents of the jade scroll? How many types of spirit herbs are there in the world of practice today that are used to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill? Dabao was taken aback. He took a closer look at the various types of spirit herbs recorded in the jade scroll and gasped. He said, my goodness, these are all priceless items that have disappeared from the world of practice a long time ago. If the Calamity Thunder Pill really needs to be refined with these things, then it's really not worth it. This time, it was Lu Ping who said, it's something that can save a life. How could it be worth it? It's just that the rare herbs used to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill might not have disappeared from the world of practice. Debao gasped and said, "Boss, you mean to say that these rare herbs only exist in the world of practice in the holy lands of the human race and the giant demon tribes? Could it be that the ancestor of the thieving heaven targeted the 9 mystical tower to steal the spirit herbs from the 9 mystical towers' herb garden to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill?" Lu Ping picked up a jade scroll and looked at it as he said, "That's just one possibility." After all, the thieving heaven Laozu was already in the mid-Dharma stage at that time. No one knows if he had used the Calamity Thunder Pill. However, he rarely fights with people in the world of practice and usually runs away when he sees people. So many people think that the thieving heaven Laozu is the weakest among the practitioners of the same level. After saying that, Lu Ping exclaimed, "The records on this jade scroll are also quite interesting." Debao saw that Lu Ping's gaze was not on the jade scroll and knew that this jade scroll was not like the previous one, where the contents were carved on the jade scroll. Instead, it was like a normal jade scroll, where the contents were checked using divine sense. Debao could not help but ask, "Is there anything unusual about it?" Lu Ping kept the jade scroll and said, "There's also an elixir recipe inside. It's a 6th grade Dharma pill." 6th grade? Dharma? Debao mumbled, "Could it be that this elixir?" Lu Ping nodded and smiled. Although a practitioner at the peak of the core forging stage who has condensed a 6th grade golden core still has a glimmer of hope of advancing to the Dharma stage, it's just too difficult. Practitioners often have to go through many hardships and pay a high price to fight for this slim chance of survival. Furthermore, advancing to the early Dharma stage is already the peak of a practitioner's practice. This 6th grade Dharma pill is a type of elixir used to forcefully raise the level of cultivation of a 6th grade golden core to the Dharma stage. Although there's still no possibility of advancing further after advancing to the early Dharma stage, it avoids many unknown pains and the price paid is relatively small. Also, the chances of success are higher. Debao said, "I'm afraid this kind of elixir is extremely difficult to refine, right?" Lu Ping nodded. However, compared to the time when Zhenling had almost used the entire sect's power to push Qianlu and Tianjiang, the 2 Laozu, from the 6th grade golden core to the early Dharma stage, the price paid for a 6th grade Dharma pill was much lower. This was also why Tianjiang and Qianlu, the 2 Laozu, were so determined to fight to the death for Zhenling, especially Tianjiang Laozu, who lived on his own will. Now, no one knew if the day Zhenling's treasured ship would come to an end after it was repaired. Of course, this was partly because he had sacrificed his life for his ideals, but it was also because he was repaying a debt of gratitude. At this time, Debao's cheers came from the other side. He said, "Boss, come and take a look at these things." Chapter 1202. Compared to spirit grasses, spirit pills were easier for cultivators to refine and absorb, and they were the condensation of countless essences. But compared to spirit pills, it was easier for spirit grasses to maintain their medicinal properties, so they could be preserved for a longer period of time. Furthermore, thieving heaven Laozu created this secret room to store his pill refinement inheritance. It was just that too much time had passed. Close to 10,000 years was enough to erase all traces, but there were still some things left behind, including a portion of the spirit grasses that thieving heaven Laozu carefully preserved. Lu Ping was stunned when he saw the spirit herbs sealed in layers of spirit sealing charms. Then, he was overjoyed. These spirit herbs were all rare and precious herbs in the cultivation world. Not only that, but they were also exceptionally mature. From the beginning to the end, all of them were at least 3,000 years old. Lu Ping carefully looked at the spirit herbs and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to use them as soon as possible." Bao said, "That's right. Although a small portion of the spirit herbs have been preserved in the jade boxes, it is clear that the medicinal properties of the spirit herbs have reached their limit. After opening the jade boxes, I'm afraid they won't be able to hide for another 3 to 5 years before all the spirit herbs become useless. Let's keep them first." There were close to 100 jade boxes containing spirit grasses on this stone shelf, but the two of them only took away 10 jade boxes after searching for a long time. The spirit grasses in the other jade boxes were all wasted. In this stone room, of the 3 stone shelves on the stone walls, The spirit pills on the stone shelf were all scrapped. The stone shelf on the side with the inheritance jade slips only had 2 jade slips that recorded the pill formula. The stone shelf with the most harvest was the jade box that contained the spirit grass. Debao searched the entire stone chamber a few more times and found a bunch of random things. Naturally, none of them caught Lu Ping's attention. Even Debao couldn't bear to throw them away, so he kept them all into his interspatial mystic instrument. It's about time. We can't find anything else in this stone room, let's go, boss. Outside the stone room, Qing Hu and the rest, as well as Samling and the rest, had their own harvests. Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance was naturally very rich, but this Laozu clearly had a special hobby, which was to hide the treasures in pieces. No matter which corner they were in, they could find something. Sometimes, an extremely valuable item wasn't hidden at all. Sometimes, after following a vague clue and racking one's brains, one could only obtain an ordinary item from an unimaginable place, which was a great disappointment. The treasures in the Thieving Heaven's inheritance have always been hidden for the sake of hiding, not because they are valuable. This is the nature of us spirit-seeking mice. Treasures are important, but it is more important to hide them well. Debao had previously been surprised by the endless number of treasures in the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, but Debao explained it like this. Therefore, no one can know the location of all the treasures in a Thieving Heaven's inheritance, and no one will know whether the treasures in a Thieving Heaven's inheritance have been searched or not. Therefore, every time a Thieving Heaven's inheritance is discovered, after a period of large-scale excavation, there will still be a continuous flow of people entering the Thieving Heaven's inheritance to search for treasures. Occasionally, someone will be lucky enough to find 1 or 2 items, causing every Thieving Heaven's inheritance to become a treasure land that will last for tens or even hundreds of years. It can be considered a miracle in the cultivation world. The secret room had 4 stone walls, 3 of which were filled with spirit pills, spirit herbs, and pill recipes. Only 1 stone wall was empty. It was just a stone wall, but at this time, Lu Ping's attention was attracted by this empty stone wall. Debao, go call the green fox here. One of Lu Ping's palms was already on this wall, and his eyes were no longer flickering with green light, but green golden light that illuminated the entire wall. His eyes had also turned golden red, and when he looked at Debao, Debao was so frightened that he took a step back. The group spent several hours in the treasure trove. Cyan Fox refined and nurtured the Skysnatcher's divine axe for a while. When she was certain that the artifact spirit had been nurtured enough, she joined in the treasure hunt. When the green fox came in, Lu Ping's palms were already on the stone wall. At this time, not only Debao and the green fox, but the others also sensed that something was wrong. They all stood outside the secret room and looked in. They saw 2 dense bluish-purple lights flowing along the arms of the green fox and into the stone wall that Lu Ping's palms were on, and the front of the stone wall was dyed blue. Seeing the green fox come in, Lu Ping asked, "Can you use the thieving divine axe well?" The green fox looked at the stone wall and said, "I can use it well, but the more subtle monster trainers may need more time to practice." The green fox took out the thieving divine axe. The shriveled old man's appearance was obviously based on the appearance of the thieving Laozu from 10,000 years ago, but when he saw Lu Ping, he immediately nodded and bowed. Lu Ping asked, "Do you remember anything about this stone wall?" The thieving divine axe shook his head, and with a terrified expression, he said, "No, I don't remember anything." Lu Ping nodded at the green fox, and said, "Listen to my instructions later. Use the spirit treasure in your hand to cut a hole in this stone wall." Before the green fox could reply, Debao at the side already started to make a fuss. "Boss, is there some treasure hidden behind this stone wall? I said that 3 of the 4 walls in this secret room have stone shelves, and only this side is empty." "Boss, your eyes are really sharp." Lu Ping waved his hand, and the Amethyst Wasp King was sent into the Golden House, and he scolded with a smile, "Stop flattering me. It is hard to say whether this stone wall is a blessing or a curse. In a while, the green fox, Debao, and Samling will follow me in, and the others will wait here and continue to search for the thieving heaven inheritance. If we do not return in 3 days, Qin you will leave with everyone and immediately head north to Yingtian Courtyard and return to the Northern Sea." Lu Qin wanted to say something, but the nearby Debao had already thought of something, and he said with a trembling heart, "Boss, behind this stone wall is the entrance to the 9 profound palace grotto heaven opened by the thieving heaven ancestor, right?" 3 5-colored rays of light rose from behind Lu Ping, and they stuck to the stone wall in 3 different directions. Lu Ping turned around and smiled. "You are right, Green Fox, do it, remember, cut, not hack." The 3 5-colored rays of light stuck to the stone wall, and with the help of these 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans, the entire stone wall finally began to transform into a wave-like barrier. At this time, the blade of the thieving heaven divine axe fiercely slashed at the barrier, and a crack appeared on the barrier, but it quickly began to close up. Lu Ping's hands, which had been stuck close to the barrier, suddenly inserted into the crack that had yet to close up, and with a sudden pull, Lu Ping tore open a large hole in the crack. Spirit chi, denser than in the secret room, gushed out of the hole. Behind the hole was clearly a place with even denser spirit chi. Lu Ping entered the hole first, and Green Fox followed closely, followed by Dabao and Samling. Then, the hole in the barrier gradually closed up, and it became a stone wall again. In an unknown location, a spatial door suddenly opened. Lu Ping was the first to step out of the door, followed by 2 familiar presences rushing towards him from the left and right. However, these 2 presences were extremely strong, almost at the Avatar realm. Lu Ping was the first to step out of the spatial door, and he was the first to step out. Lu Ping was shocked, and he slashed out with his thin water-long stream sword, and the sharp sword aura rushed towards both sides like water from a broken dam. Then, he heard 2 clear cries, and a large number of green feathers fell from the sky. This time, it was Lu Ping's turn to be shocked. When these 2 auras had rushed down from the sky, the impact that each of them had on Lu Ping was no less than that of a mid-Dharma adept. How could Lu Ping be forced into such a pathetic state by 2 hasty slashes? At this time, Green Fox, Dabao, Samling, and the others jumped out of the door one after another. Seeing the thin water-long stream sword circling around Lu Ping, they all felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Green Fox's strength was second only to Lu Ping, and she quickly discovered the 2 attackers. She said, "Each of us, let's deal with one each. Let's end this quickly, or else something might happen." Unexpectedly, Lu Ping raised his hand to stop her. He said, "There's no rush, there's something fishy about this." The 2 auras slowly approached Lu Ping and the others, but they maintained a certain distance, as if they were extremely wary of Lu Ping's 2 slashes. At this time, Lu Ping raised his voice and said, "Elders Mulwan, would you please show yourself?" Mulwan. Green Fox was taken aback, and even Samling and Dabao were surprised. 2 middle-aged men dressed in green walked out slowly from behind a slope. The 2 of them, who had originally looked exceptionally tall and dignified, had 2 slashes on their chests and abdomen, and they looked extremely pathetic. The 2 of them looked at Lu Ping and the others with doubtful expressions, but they were also unusually cautious. The one on the left asked slowly, "You're not disciples of the 9 Shen Tower. Who are you?" Lu Ping did not answer directly, but asked, "Are the 2 of you from the Mulwan tribe that has lived here for generations?" The 2 Mulwan looked at each other, and the one on the right was obviously impatient. He asked loudly, "Who are you? Tell us quickly, or we'll send out a warning and gather the 9 Shen Tower's disciples to surround and kill you." At this time, Lu Ping finally calmed down. He chuckled and said, "I believe the 2 of you have already confirmed who we are. Moreover, if the 2 of you wanted to gather the 9 Shen Tower's disciples, I'm afraid you would have done so long ago. Why wait until now?" The 2 Mulwan kept their mouths shut and only stood in the distance, facing off against Lu Ping and the others. They did not send out any warning or gather the 9 Shen Tower's disciples. Lu Ping seemed to have expected this, and he directly ignored the 2 Mulwan. He beckoned to the one behind him and said, "Dabao, this should be the 9 Shen Tower's grotto heaven that specializes in cultivating spirit herbs. Hurry up and pick the valuable, important, and mature ones. Also, look for all the spirit herbs recorded in the 2 pill recipes you saw earlier. Remember, do not stray more than 30 li from me." Da Bao chuckled and said, "There are truly too many treasures here. I, Da Bao, have been waiting for a long time." As he finished speaking, a yellow cloud of dust rose from his feet. Dabao had already used the earth evasion technique and disappeared. Chapter 1203. It was obvious that this was a grotto heaven in the Nine Profound Tower that was specially used to cultivate spiritual herbs. The terrain inside the grotto heaven was uneven, but it was filled with spiritual herb gardens. All kinds of spiritual herbs grew in different types, and they grew in different areas. Occasionally, there were some medicinal trees that formed a lush forest. The rich spiritual qi nourished all the life in the grotto heaven. Lu Ping felt as if he could feel the vigorous vitality in the grotto heaven even as he breathed. Spirit-seeking mouse? The wood phoenix cultivator on the right looked in the direction that Dabao had disappeared in bewilderment. It was unknown whether he was asking Lu Ping, the pale-faced wood phoenix cultivator on the left, or perhaps he was muttering to himself. Lu Ping seemed to know that Dabao had not gone far. He said loudly, "Be careful. Don't make it too obvious. Only take what's useful. Don't give yourself away too much." The two wood phoenixes looked at each other. It was obvious that these people were treating them as nothing. Moreover, it seemed like they were planning to make a small, long-term investment. Qing, who also looked at Lu Ping in surprise. "Are you planning to come again in the future?" Lu Ping looked in the direction of the two wood phoenixes and said, "Whether or not I can come again depends on these two seniors." When Qing who looked over, the two wood phoenixes were already whispering to each other. She couldn't tell what they were discussing. Meanwhile, Lu Ping once again summoned the amethyst queen bee from the House of Gold. He ordered her to lead her subjects into the grotto heaven in a grandiose manner. Similarly, according to Lu Ping's orders, the amethyst bees would not leave the 30-kilometer radius that Lu Ping's divine sense could cover. Amethyst bees. The two wood phoenixes didn't even have time to discuss. They stared dumbfoundedly at the 3,000 amethyst bees charging into the sea of spiritual herbs under the amethyst queen bee's guidance. However, in just a short while, the two of them gasped again as they watched the 3 14- or 15-year-old children walking into the cave. One of them exclaimed in a low voice, "Green sea snake." The other person muttered to himself, "Wind snake, water snake, and ice snake. The descendants of the 3 strongest tribes of the green sea snake." Another 2 streaks of light descended from the sky. They were 2 attractive middle-aged women, both of them at the early Dharma stage. It was obvious that they had come to meet up with the 2 wood phoenix adepts because they had discovered the abnormality of this place. However, just like the 2 wood phoenix adepts, these 2 women did not attack Lu Ping and Green Fox. Green Fox was a little uneasy as she said, "What's going on?" "If these 4 were to join forces against us, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand in a short period of time. But they're all from the Wood Phoenix tribe. Once they warn us, we'll be like turtles in a jar." Lu Ping smiled faintly. If these people really wanted to hand us over to the 9 Mystical Tower, they would have warned the 9 Mystical Tower the moment we entered this cave. In fact, they didn't do anything at all. But when you came in just now, they attacked. Lu Ping nodded and said, "The 2 wood phoenixes indeed have strong training, but their abilities may not be that high. Even if you were to attack, those 2 might not be able to defeat you even if they joined forces." Green Fox was in disbelief. "How is that possible? The Wood Phoenix tribe is a top-level demon clan, and they are the direct descendants of the Luan Daoist, who is as famous as the Fire Phoenix. With their level of training, they might not be weaker than me among the same level of practitioners." Lu Ping laughed loudly. "How many Wood Phoenixes are left of the Wood Phoenix tribe in the world of practitioners? I'm afraid the only ones left are the Wood Phoenix slaves that are raised in the caves of the various holy lands to cultivate spirit herbs. They are sacrificed at specific times to help the practitioners of the holy lands break through the bottleneck of their training. How strong do you think these Wood Phoenix slaves are? In order to control these demon slaves, why would the holy lands allow them to grow freely?" Green Fox naturally understood the logic behind this, but she still asked, "No matter what, the Wood Luan tribe is one of the most powerful tribes among the monster race. They have inherited their bloodline and memories, and this grotto heaven is rich in spirit chi and spirit herbs. It seems like the 9 Mystical Tower isn't controlling them, but imprisoning them at most." Lu Ping laughed. You don't know this, but although these top-level demons have inherited their bloodlines and memories, these things can only support their training before they reach the core forging stage. If they want to reach the Dharma stage and still maintain their advantage as a top-level demon clan, then they have to stay in the secret cave of the Wood Phoenix tribe for a long time. Otherwise, even if they reach the Dharma stage, without the secret techniques and cultivation methods of the Wood Phoenix tribe, they can only gradually become mediocre. Furthermore, they have been imprisoned here their entire lives, and have never had any experience in fighting with others. Just now, when the two of them fought, they completely relied on their cultivation to win. How strong do you think they are? The conversation between Lu Ping and Green Fox was not deliberately hidden, so the four Wood Phoenix cultivators heard it clearly. When Lu Ping finished speaking, the pale-faced Wood Phoenix cultivator could not help but ask, "Who are you? How do you know so many secrets of the Wood Phoenix tribe?" Lu Ping smiled. "In the end, you can't hold it in any longer. Naturally, we came in from outside the 9 mystical tower. As for what method we used to break through the protective array of the 9 mystical tower and enter, I believe that only the Wood Phoenix seniors know." The face of the Wood Phoenix cultivator with the silk scarf on his head immediately changed. He snorted coldly and said, "What are you talking about? We don't understand what you mean." Lu Ping did not comment on this person's denial. Instead, he answered the question of the Wood Phoenix cultivator, saying, "Although the Wood Phoenix tribe is on the verge of extinction, it is not extinct. I once had a good friend of the Wood Phoenix tribe, and he is currently cultivating in the secret cave of the Wood Phoenix tribe in the East Sea, so he knows a lot about your clan." "Impossible. Is that true?" The silk scarf Wood Phoenix and the pale-faced Wood Phoenix almost blurted out at the same time. The two of them looked at each other, both seeing shock and hope in the other's eyes. In the end, it was the silk scarf Wood Phoenix who said with a slight tremble, "The Wood Phoenix tribe of the cultivation world really did not go extinct." Lu Ping shrugged and said, "No, but I'm afraid it won't be long. Anyway, I've only seen one Wood Luan before. I've never heard any news about the Wood Luan clan in the cultivation world for the past few hundred years. Of course, there are rumors that there are ancient spirit birds and beasts like you in the sacred land. But I'm afraid your identities are a bit awkward, so no one will treat you as part of the Wood Luan clan." Lu Ping's words were extremely straightforward. The silk scarf cultivator's face showed anger, and the pale-faced Wood Phoenix became even paler. The two female Wood Phoenix cultivators also looked at Lu Ping with unsightly expressions, but there was also a hint of loneliness. Qing Hu, on the other hand, became even more nervous, afraid that the Wood Phoenix would be angered by Lu Ping's sharp words and send a warning to the 9 mystical tower. Even though she still felt puzzled that the Wood Phoenix had not sent a warning to the 9 mystical tower, this was still what she hoped for. However, when she thought about infiltrating the inheritance cave of the 9 mystical tower, she felt an inexplicable excitement in her heart. "Fellows, if you have anything to say, just say it. Looks like this sky grotto is a place specially used by 9 profound tower to grow spiritual herbs. You fellows must be the spiritual plant farmers here, right? However, given how important this place is, it is impossible for 9 profound tower to not send some cultivators to check on it frequently." In Qing Hu's eyes, Lu Ping's words were as rude as possible, but the 4-aspect Azure Luan became calmer and calmer after hearing Lu Ping's words. It was truly strange. "You came in through the passage opened by the thieving heaven Laozu?" The 4 of them whispered to each other again. This time, it was one of the 2 female Wood Phoenix cultivators who spoke. Lu Ping's expression was one of certainty. "I didn't think that you would still be waiting after 10,000 years. It seems that the thieving heaven Laozu really did have some secret agreement with you when he entered this place. For you to be willing to keep this secret for almost 10,000 years, it must be because the thieving heaven Laozu promised to help you escape from the bondage of monster slaves." The female Wood Phoenix cultivator said fiercely, "Who would be willing to be a monster slave from birth? In every generation, other than leaving behind a few seeds, the rest of the clansmen would disappear. Needless to say, we know that they were killed by the 9 mystical tower and used to grow rare herbs to increase their cultivation." The other female Wood Phoenix cultivator thought of something and asked in surprise, You didn't know about this at all? Lu Ping smiled. That's right, but now I can roughly guess what is going on. The pale-faced wood phoenix cultivator asked, then what's the deal with that spirit-seeking mouse of yours? Lu Ping said calmly, he is my follower and also my brother. Follower? Is there still such an existence in the cultivation world? You actually did not place restrictions on their divine senses? The silk turban wood phoenix was somewhat surprised and emotional. The other wood phoenix's expressions changed, even the green fox had a strange expression. Lu Ping found it funny, after placing restrictions on them, they can only be monster slaves and spirit pets like you. How can they be followers, how can they be brothers? Lu Ping did not care about what the wood phoenixes were thinking, he said directly, back then, thieving heaven Laozu died from his injuries after leaving this grotto heaven. He naturally could not return to save you, and he also could not leave behind his last words to save you. Lu Ping did not care about their expressions, he continued, and if I am not wrong, the fatal injuries on thieving heaven Laozu's body were likely caused by your ancestor, right? Rather than saying that thieving heaven Laozu agreed to save you, it is more accurate to say that he was forced to do so. Chapter 1204. More than 9,000 years ago, the first time thieving Laozu stepped into the longevity grotto heaven, he was discovered by the Wood Luan demon slaves at that time. It was also at the place where Lu Ping and the rest appeared. The two mid-Dharma stage Wood Luan demon slaves joined forces and heavily injured Laozu who had just entered. Having lost the inheritance of the Wood Phoenix clan after advancing to the Dharma stage, the strength of the demon slaves could only be considered mediocre among practitioners of the same level, but it was still not something that the thieving Sky Patriarch could withstand. Even though he was also a mid-Dharma adept, to be able to push his cultivation to the mid-Dharma stage, it was unknown how many tricks he had used, and how many coincidences he had encountered. With his cultivation and strength, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the weakest among the practitioners of the same level. So how could he withstand the attack of two Wood Phoenix demon slaves? The heavily injured and captured thieving Laozu had no choice but to agree to the Wood Luan race's many conditions, the most important of which was that he would enter the longevity grotto heaven in the future and bring the Wood Luan race's descendants out of the grotto heaven, so that they would not be enslaved by the 9 Shen Tower. For this, the Wood Luan demon slaves in the grotto heaven secretly helped thieving Laozu to steal a large number of rare herbs from the longevity grotto heaven before letting him go. Of course, even if the Wood Luan demon slaves in the longevity grotto heaven did not know the ways of the world, they still had to guard against thieving Laozu going back on his word after leaving the grotto heaven. Thus, they had a backup plan, so that thieving Laozu would not be able to enter the grotto heaven again. Back then, when thieving Laozu entered the longevity grotto heaven, he was captured by the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves. However, at that time, the Wood Luan demon slaves did not have any eggs that had not hatched yet, so they could not let thieving Laozu take them away. And after the Wood Luan race was born, they would be turned into demon slaves by the 9 Shen Tower's divine will. Even if they were not in the longevity grotto heaven, their life and death were at the mercy of the 9 Shen Tower. With no other choice, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slave had no choice but to let thieving heaven Laozu leave and agreed to enter the grotto heaven again to take the Wood Luan egg and raise it in the cultivation world. However, the Wood Luan demon slaves did not expect that the injuries they had inflicted on thieving Laozu, which were not considered serious, would be fatal. Thieving heaven Laozu only had the cultivation of the mid-Dharma stage, but in reality, he really could not take a beating. The plan of the Wood Luan demon slaves immediately came to nothing. This wait lasted for nearly 10,000 years. That year, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves had already become the meal of some powerful person in the 9 Shen Tower, while the Wood Luan demon slaves in the longevity grotto heaven secretly passed down the information that there was a flaw in the grotto heaven left behind by thieving heaven Laozu, hoping that someone from the outside could use this flaw to reopen the passage to the outside world. For this reason, every generation of Wood Luan demon slaves had been secretly preparing for this. Because thieving heaven Laozu had entered the grotto heaven from here, the Wood Luan demon race built their nest in a forest not far from here. With regards to this request of the Wood Luan race, Lu Ping naturally would not refuse. Since he was already here, Taking away some of the Wood Luon's descendants was just a matter of convenience. Moreover, this matter would only benefit Lu Ping. The sky above the forest was connected to form a huge nest. When Lu Ping and Green Fox arrived, the two discovered that this was actually a small colony of Wood Luon. Apart from the 4 Dharma stage Wood Luon demon slaves, there were also 3 pairs of Wood Luon demon slaves. 2 pairs were at the core forging stage, while the other pair was only at the blood condensation stage. We have already gathered all of our tribe members. There are 10 of them in total, and they are all here now. However, we did not inform them of your arrival, so your followers will not meet them in the grotto heaven. The one who spoke was the Wood Luon cultivator with a silk scarf on his head. This person was Luon Xiao, and one of the 2 female Dharma adepts who came after him was his path companion, while the other was the path companion of the pale-faced cultivator. Lu Ping and Green Fox followed the 4 Dharma adepts of the Wood Luon race to the grotto heaven. They saw the pale-faced Wood Luon Qing raise his hand and slap an inconspicuous little tree near the nest. This little tree, which would at least be a top-grade spiritual material when it was fully grown, was instantly broken. However, the center of the broken little tree was hollow, and 2 snow-white eggs rolled out of it. Luon Qing carefully held the 2 snow-white eggs in his hands and caressed them for a while before handing the eggs over to Lu Ping under the dejected expression of his path companion. He said, "These are the descendants of my wife and I. Ever since our union, we have only left 5 descendants. Other than these 2 who have been hiding in secret, of the remaining 3, 2 have hatched into adults, a boy and a girl. Both are now at the core forging stage. The girl was brought to the Wuxing school by the 9 mystical tower in exchange for a girl of the same cultivation level as the path companion of the boy. As for the other egg, it was taken away by the 9 mystical tower before it hatched. It is highly likely that it has already become someone's stomach." At this point, Luon Qing's path companion's voice was slightly choked as she said, "Fortunately, the Wood Luon race has a secret technique that allows us to preserve these eggs for almost 100 years. Otherwise, if you had come 10 years later, my 2 children would have died in the eggs before they hatched." Lu Ping received the 2 eggs and carefully placed them into the house of gold. Immediately after, Luon Xiao took out another egg from the heart of another tree and handed it over to Lu Ping. Luon Xiao had also given birth to 5 eggs with his path companion. 3 of them hatched, 2 were male and 1 was female. Of the 2 sons, one was exchanged for a path companion from the Purple Sun Palace, while the other had his golden core dug out by the 9 mystical tower after he advanced to the core forging stage. As for the remaining 2 eggs, one of them had died due to the passage of time. Only this one was still alive. Soon after, Luon Xiao took out another egg from the roots of another tree and said, "This is fellow Daoist Luon Xiao's descendant." Both husband and wife were taken away by the 9 mystical towers Zhu Jiuwan a few decades ago. I believe they were used to nourish her and help her break through to the pure Yang realm. I hope that you can take this egg with you and leave behind a descendant for fellow Daoist Luon Xiao. This wasn't the end of it. Luon Qing also took out another 2 eggs from an unknown place. These 2 eggs looked much fresher than the previous 4. They should have been born not too long ago. Sure enough, Luon Qing said, "These 2 eggs are the descendants of fellow Daoist Luon Xiao and I. I'll have to trouble you to take them with you." When Luon Qing found these 2 eggs, Lu Ping had already noticed that there were 2 more eggs together with these 2 eggs. However, Luon Qing didn't take them out. Lu Ping could guess that they were still somewhat worried about him. They were afraid that their descendants would enter the tiger's den right after leaving the wolf's den. Therefore, they didn't dare to hand over all of their descendants to Lu Ping. However, Luon Qing and Luon Xiao's descendants had been eggs for too long. They couldn't keep them, so they had no choice but to hand them over to Lu Ping. However, they still kept some of their descendants. However, Lu Ping still asked, "Since fellow Daoist trusts me so much, aren't you afraid that I'll turn your descendants into demon slaves in the future?" Luon Xiao smiled bitterly. "There are demon slaves on both sides, how bad can it be? Handing them over to fellow Daoist can be considered a ray of hope. I can only hope that fellow Daoist's compassion will allow the Wood Luon clan to continue to exist in the cultivation world." Lu Ping put away the 5 Wood Luon eggs and said, "I'll do my best." The 9 Profound Tower clearly didn't only have the longevity heaven grotto heaven to cultivate spiritual herbs. However, without a doubt, the longevity heaven grotto heaven was the 9 Profound Tower's most important place for cultivating spiritual herbs. Naturally, there were 9 Profound Towers cultivators stationed within the longevity heaven grotto heaven. However, due to the existence of the wood Luon Yarrow slaves and the fact that the heaven grotto heaven was incomparably vast, the cultivators guarding the longevity heaven grotto heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the help of the wood Luon Yarrow slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, the 9 Profound Towers longevity heaven grotto heaven remained undetected. The 9 Profound Tower had sent cultivators to guard the longevity heaven grotto heaven. However, due to the existence of the wood Luon Yarrow slaves and the incomparably vast heaven grotto heaven, the cultivators guarding the longevity heaven grotto heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the assistance of the wood Luon Yarrow slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, the 9 Profound Towers longevity heaven grotto heaven remained undetected. Not to mention, this was just one of the 9 Profound Towers longevity heaven grotto heaven. During these 3 days, Lu Ping's harvest could be described as a fruitful journey. Putting aside the fact that the 3,000 amethyst bee soldiers had brought Lu Ping several jars of amethyst bee honey, Zilan would have to spend a long time to brew the amethyst royal jelly. Just the amount of rare herbs that Dabao had brought back was enough to make Lu Ping overjoyed. In order to not leave behind too obvious a trail, Dabao had to pick and choose what he wanted. If the one Kai higher sky had appeared, Lu Ping would not have been able to finish using it even after a few hundred years. Of course, it was impossible for him to collect so many spiritual herbs in the longevity heaven grotto heaven in just 3 days. Other than this, what was even more precious was the 2 pill recipes that he had obtained from Laozu the thieving heaven, the thunder calamity pill and the grade 6 transcendence pill. All the rare herbs that were recorded in the longevity heaven grotto heaven were collected by Dabao. Of course, there were some rare herbs that Lu Ping did not recognize or that had already gone extinct in the cultivation world. Dabao had also found many of them, allowing Lu Ping and Zhenling to have a complete variety of spiritual herbs in their longevity heaven grotto heaven garden. Lu Ping had also found a few rare tea trees in the longevity heaven. He had asked him to take their seeds and branches to see if they could be planted in the Golden House. The 3 days that Lu Ping had agreed on with Lu Qina and the others had arrived. Before Lu Ping left the longevity heaven grotto heaven, Luan Qing and Luan Xiu had surprised Lu Ping again. This is the 7 aperture pear and immortal root. Lu Ping looked at the items in their hands. Even though he was surprised, he was very excited. These were all treasures that could be used to strengthen the physical body. Furthermore, this 7 aperture pear was clearly ripe. If he could find the 7 aperture pear seeds in the fruit, wouldn't he be able to use them to nurture the 7 aperture pear tree? He could also try to nurture the immortal root. In terms of preciousness, these 2 items were not inferior to the azure wood pure jade fruit that Lu Ping had once obtained. These are the 2 spiritual items that we have been secretly collecting all these years. Today, we will give them to you. Lu Ping took the 2 items and said with a serious expression, "Rest assured, the Wood Luon race will definitely not go extinct." Chapter 1205. Lu Ping did not expect to receive such a pleasant surprise before leaving the longevity sky grotto. The 7 aperture pear and immortal root were rare treasures in the cultivation world that could significantly strengthen a cultivator's physical body. While these 2 treasures could not be compared to the white jade lotus root and bloody skeleton flower in Lu Ping's possession, they were comparable to the verdant wood pure jade fruit. Furthermore, Lu Ping had discovered that the 7 aperture pear was sufficiently ripe. There might even be a 7 aperture pear tree seed inside. Moreover, the immortal root was also a hidden source of vitality. Perhaps, it could take root again. If that was the case, it would truly be a blessing from the heavens. The longevity sky grotto was vast. In just 3 days, Lu Ping had led Dabao, the amethyst wasps, Samling and the rest through the areas that might be guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators under the guidance of the Wood Luon. Furthermore, they had to carefully identify the types and ages of the spiritual herbs. As a result, they had only covered a third of the longevity sky grotto. However, they had already reaped such a harvest in a third of the longevity sky grotto. If they were to search through the entire winter, especially those areas guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators, who knew what kind of harvest they would reap? When Lu Ping and the rest entered the longevity sky grotto, Lu Ping turned to Luan Qing, who had rushed over to send them off. I am deeply grateful for fellow Daoist's help. However, although we have been cautious, quite a number of spiritual herbs have disappeared during the winter. Not to mention, some of them are extremely valuable. If the 9 mystical tower investigates, I fear that fellow Daoists will not be able to escape responsibility. Luan Qing did not mind at all. She smiled. So what? We will die either way. None of us wood Luan Yarrow slaves raised in the longevity sky grotto have a good ending. The 9 mystical tower will not waste the value of a single wood Luan. It is only a matter of time before we die. Seeing the guilty expressions on Lu Ping's and the rest's faces, Luan Qing smiled and said, "Of course, we will do our best to save ourselves. However, at the very most, we can only say that we don't know anything. If the 9 mystical tower suspects you, we will need you to extricate yourself from this matter." Lu Ping nodded and turned to Azure Fox. "Let's begin." Qing Hua swung the heaven-stealing divine axe forward and tore a rift in the dimension. Lu Ping did the same thing, pulling on the sides of the rift and tearing it open. Then, the few of them rushed out of the rift and disappeared. Luan Qing was left staring blankly at the spatial crack closing before her, muttering, "I hope that the Wood Luan clan still has a chance." Outside 9 Profound Mountain, a stream of light, grand and majestic, descended upon the mountain, giving off an atmosphere that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The stream of light retracted to reveal a tall, bearded cultivator. Step by step, he walked towards the center of the mountain. The Tianyi Pavilion Master and San, and Chang Sansai Chang, smiled. "Qing. Brother," the other said with a cheeky smile, "Brother Wei is here." This unkempt cultivator was the #1 direct disciple of the 9 mystical tower, the brother in charge of the Yi Yuan Pavilion, Wei Zhan. He was usually called Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan looked at the two of them and said in a low and hoarse voice, "What's wrong? You lost them?" Chang Sansai shrugged his shoulders and made an innocent expression, while the yin and yang brothel master revealed an ashamed expression and said, "Yes, we fell into their trap. They seem to have entered the thieving heaven inheritance for 3 days." Wei Yuan nodded. 3 days is not a long time. The treasures in the thieving heaven inheritance are hard to find. Usually, it takes decades to find all the treasures inside. Some greedy people even stay inside for a year or 2. Regardless of who entered, it seems that Azure Fox and Lu Tianping did not enter. Are there any traces of them now? The Tianyi Pavilion Master shook his head. "These people are very secretive, we have not been able to find them." Wei Yuan said, "That is to be expected. But once the people who entered the thieving heaven inheritance appear, Lu Tianping and Azure Fox will definitely come to their aid. At that time, we will not be able to let them escape again." The Tianyi Pavilion Master said, "Don't worry, brother. This time, we have made even more thorough arrangements. Lu Tianping and the rest will not be able to escape." Wei Zhan glanced at the Tianyi Pavilion Master and said, "Don't speak too early. I remember you saying that Lu Tianping and the rest will be captured before they can enter the thieving heaven inheritance, but what about now?" The Tianyi Pavilion Master's face turned red. Who would have thought that the formation that 5th junior brother comprehended from the underworld void formation could be seen through by Lu Tianping? Wei Zhan grunted coldly and said, "That Lu Tianping probably possesses a miraculous eye technique, and it's very likely that it's one of the 3 branches of the Tripure True Pupils. Moreover, it's very likely that he's mastered it, so it wouldn't be strange for him to be able to see through old 5th's formation." Wei Zhan explained, then asked Chang Sansai, "You have fought with that Lu Tianping before, how do you think his strength compares to mine?" Chang Sansai became more serious at this moment. He spat out the small stick in his mouth and thought for a while before saying, "From the situation at that time, he is only slightly stronger than me, but he must have hidden his strength at that time." As for him being able to defeat the fourth elder of the Tenma people, although it seems powerful, don't forget that it was on the Qingming River. This person is a cultivator from overseas, and he cultivates a water attribute cultivation method. His sword ability is like a surging wave or a surging flood, but his cultivation base is so dense that it makes one's hair stand on end. That was because he had the geographical advantage, so in my opinion, his true strength is about the same as Elder Tianma. Wei Yizhen nodded. Most cultivators from overseas cultivate a water attribute cultivation method. Elder Tianma was indeed careless when he fought with Lu Tianping on the Qingming River. If he was facing a cultivator of the same level, I believe that Elder Tianma would not have been so unwise. At this moment, the master of the Yin and Yang Tower hurriedly interrupted. That is to say that Lu Tianping's strength is at most equal to eldest senior brother's. Eldest senior brother has also fought with many great cultivators before, and those people were unable to do anything to eldest senior brother. Wei Yizhen pondered. In that case, this person's strength should be about the same as mine. The master of the Yin and Yang Tower continued. If the strength is about the same, then it depends on the treasures in one's hands. Eldest senior brother has a second tribulation spirit treasure bestowed by the seniors of the sect, so this person will definitely lose to eldest senior brother. Chang Sansai curled his lips and said that Lu Tianping possesses several great innate and supreme divine abilities. If eldest senior brother is to face this person, you should be careful. The master of the Yin and Yang Tower said unhappily, "Third brother, why do you always side with an outsider? Don't forget that eldest senior brother has already condensed 2 supreme divine abilities, and he also has 2 to 3 great innate divine abilities. If he adds on the power of the second tribulation spirit treasure, it is not an exaggeration to say that no third-generation cultivators in the entire cultivation world will be a match for him." Chang Sansai smacked his lips, and in the end, he simply kept the small wooden stick that he had just spat out in his mouth. In the end, he simply did not say anything, but this disgusted the master of the Yin and Yang Tower who was watching at the side. However, he did not open his mouth to say anything. Obviously, although they hated this bad habit of the master of the Yin and Yang Tower, they were already used to it. At this moment, it was the master of the First Origin Tower who took over and continued. This Lu Tianping had a nickname when he was in the North Sea. He was called Treasure Boy. This means that this person always has all kinds of treasures and trump cards on him, making it impossible for others to guard against him. It is hard to guarantee that this person does not have similar treasures on him. In short, this person is definitely a formidable opponent. After returning to the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, Lu Ping and the others did not leave immediately. De Bao once again did a carpet search in this inheritance. Everyone had no choice but to stay and wait for him. At this moment, Lu Ping was not particularly anxious. He simply began to sort out the gains from the Longevity Grotto Heaven in the secret room. At the same time, he also began to refine the magic treasure pill furnace Thieving Heaven cauldron that had condensed a treasure restriction. As for the 5 wood luan eggs, Lu Ping had already instructed Qing Hu to conceal this matter. After returning to the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, he recalled Lu Qina and Lu Daohua back to the Golden House. There was a forest in the Golden House, but Lu Qina still built her nest on top of the spirit demon peach tree. However, at this time, there were 5 wood luan eggs in Lu Qina's nest. Seeing Lu Qina's frown, Lu Daohua gloated, "Qina, looks like you really should get married. You haven't even become Luan Yu's Dao companion, but Big Brother has already given you the task of hatching the wood luan eggs. If Luan Yu finds out about this in the future, what will he think?" Lu Qina fiercely glared at Lu Daohua. "Damned girl, you dare to talk nonsense, see if I don't tear your mouth apart." Lu Daohua giggled. "Don't worry, Big Brother will not talk nonsense. Moreover, if you really hatch a wood luan bird, Luan Yu will be overjoyed. I believe that Luan Yu does not want the wood luan race to be extinct more than anyone else, right?" Lu Qina said, "This grandaunt is doing her best for the wood luan race. I hope these 5 wood luan eggs can hatch smoothly." Lu Qina saw Lu Daohua holding many bottles and jars as she walked around her main body. She asked, "What are you doing?" Lu Daohua said, "These are the seeds of rare herbs that Big Brother brought out from Longevity Grotto Heaven. He hopes that they can be nurtured in the Golden House, so he asked me to take care of them. Lu Qin'er smiled. In terms of nurturing spirit herbs, even the Wood Luan race might not be as good as Sister Peach Blossom. Inside Thieving Heaven's inheritance, Debao laughed like a madman. Ha 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 ha, found it, I knew it. Ancestor Thieving Heaven's dream was to raise the aptitude of the spirit-seeking mice. How could he not leave behind his inheritance before his death? Lu Ping was also very interested in Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance. He quickly asked Debao for this beast skin scroll that was sealed by layers of spirit-sealing talismans. Weighing the beast skin scroll in his hand, Lu Ping exclaimed, "The beast skin of a pure young beastkin cultivator, this is a big deal." A beast skin scroll that was made from the fur of a pure young beastkin cultivator's main body was naturally not a small matter. Lu Ping carefully opened the beast skin scroll. His eyes flickered with a faint light as he carefully read the contents. His expression became increasingly strange, making Debao feel increasingly uneasy. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.